Hello, this is Nathan with Heart of the Dice. This is the beginning of a brand new arc called the Umbral Harbingers. Here, taking place in the Black Jade Lords, you'll see a party of 5 players, some new, some returning, that are finding their way to the center of an umbral corruption, an influence creating necrotic beasts that are terrorizing the Black Jade Lords in the area. What will our 5 heroes do on their quest to the center of the umbral corruption? Well, don't go away because the new arc starts right now. Death. What is death? Is it the end or a new beginning? What do the people of Chrysalis think of death? Is it a celebration of a life once lived? Is it the tragedy of those who have not yet achieved immortality? Do different races or people groups face death in different ways? Well, look no further than the regions of Chrysalis to see death in different contexts with different purpose. Across the plains of the Ruby Empire, you may see honorable burial and tributes in the form of cremation, as the dragons light ablaze warriors who were slain in combat. You can jump over to the Emerald Egalitary, where a child is burying a lost pet and grieving over the absence of a loved one. Or you jump to the Opal Refuge, where in the forests, druids celebrate, fully use, and separate and bury one of the beasts to recycle it into nature in an expedited process of decay, decomposition, and renewal. Or you jump over to the Sapphire Scholars, where someone is propped up on life support via all forms of powerful technology as they finally give out, much to the chagrin of the ambitions of doctors and scientists in the area. Or you jump to the Topaz Tribes, where gravesites dot the landscape amongst their hallowed grounds, where the spirits of those people are rumored to still walk to this day. But among all of these regions, not all treat death equally. We now move into the Black Jade Lords, the ultimate purveyors and perversions of death. These different, charismatic, powerful leaders that stretch throughout an ashen, apocalyptic wasteland, looming in the shadow of a crater the size of a subcontinent. They have domain over creatures of horrifying monstrosities, from zombies, skeletons, ghouls, ghosts, and more. They see death as just another cog in a machine to enable them more power. But before we go too deep, let's focus in on just the western part of the Black Jade Lords as we drop down onto a rocky, arid wasteland of a battlefield. You see the flesh and decay of bodies strewn on the ground, some with bones so brittle that they might snap, some with skin and muscle barely holding on through tendons, or some humans, and fully armored, clothed units that lay dead on the field. The blood is still wet. These kills must have been recent. And if we look over, we find that there is, among the carnage, one armored man suddenly wakes up. Winton, outside the plains of Tombstep, which is the vanguard camp of your red Atyugs, you awake in your own blood with 2 arrows protruding from your chest. To you, it feels as though this must be a dream. you were certain that you had died just moments earlier. But in order for us to learn more about what happened on the plains of Tombstep outside the Ruby Empire and the Black Jade Lords, let's go ahead and take a quick step back in time to the night before.
Winton, you find yourself in the campsite of the Red Atyug's Vanguard Battalion. You're in your tent right now, preparing for what might be a very daunting battle tomorrow against King Grimthorn's armies of the undead. I think right now is probably a reasonable time for you to be praying to your god as a cleric. So why don't you describe your character, what you look like, and maybe what you're doing right now the nights before a big battle.
All right. My name is Winton Rocher. I am a soldier in the Red Young Battalion, part of the Ruby Empire's armies. I am wearing standard soldier gear, pretty heavy plate armor, lots of reds, red sashes, really emphasizing the fact that I am a part of the Ruby Empire. Right now, I'm praying to Tempest, like trying to see our odds of victory, as Tempest is a war god, and trying to divine the outcome of the battle tomorrow and how much danger we're putting ourselves in as a company.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so Winton's role as an army cleric is not just to heal and mend the wounds of your fellow soldiers. You're far too skilled for just that alone. But as one of the members of the army with a rare divine connection and relationship to the god of Tempest, you have the ability to, in some way or another, divine outcomes for the upcoming battles ahead, which of course is extremely fortuitous for someone like, say, General Cedric Marin. As you are in your own private studies, you notice that there are troops around you that are preparing for battle. This is no large group of a cavalcade of soldiers. It is merely 12 tightly bonded, honor and duty bound, extremely well trained, rehearsed battalion vanguard leads. These riders will use this special creature, which we'll get to look at in a second here, to have devastating and disproportionate impact on the battlefield as an advanced front for what will be the follow-on infantry units of the Ruby Empire. You're in your tent right now as people are setting up these creatures. Outside, you see that Ewald, one of your fellow colleagues, is working with one of her creatures, which we've called an Atyug. And for those at home who are not familiar with what an Atyug is, describe what this is. What is an Atyug?
An Atyug is a being of pure gluttony, standing on 3 legs, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. It's a round, blubber-filled maw, the front entirely teeth, with 3 tentacles coming off of its back, 2 with grippers meant to reach out and grab things to pull it into its mouth, and 1 coming a little bit up its back with 3 eyes dotting it, allowing it to see in any direction at any time.
Yes, the Atyugs are the perfect monster for the Red Ruby Empire to use against the Black Jade Lord for one very simple reason. The Black Jade Lords don't care whether units are felled in combat, because they will just resurrect them again. The only way to truly stop someone from bringing these units back to life for their own nefarious ends is to either separate the mind from the body through a decapitation or some other dismemberment, or, as the Atyugs are so likened to do, just eat them, swallow them whole and digest them, providing extra fuel for the fire that is the Ruby's brigade. Now, Winton, this is an important battle for your people. The Black Jade Lords have constantly represented not just a thorn in the Ruby Empire's side, but they have represented nothing but tormentous, terrible experiences for the people of the Black Jade Lords, and even those who simply wished to lay to rest, because they keep resurrecting them for either military or economic purposes as slaves or soldiers. In the eyes of the Ruby Empire, this is not just quelling a bunch of rebellious lords that are looming over the land. It's possibly freeing the souls of the condemned so they could finally find rest. And winning this battle is just one of the many that the Empress Delgradia herself has commissioned General Cedric Marin and your group of the Red Atyugs to conduct. And speaking of him, he's going to show up in just a moment, but let's give you a chance to actually tune in with your god Tempest. So why don't you go ahead and roll, let's say, religion, but the way we're going to do religion is because your spellcasting modifier is wisdom. Go ahead and, because this is a god that you normally pray to, go ahead and just make a wisdom check as you are communing with your deity.
All right. Wisdom. That's an 18.
Okay, yeah, very good. So, Winton, you tell me, what is this religious ceremony that you typically go through when you're on the front lines, you're preparing for battle? What does that look like?
At this point, since we've been encamped here for, I assume, at least a day.
Yeah.
I've assembled a shrine, and Tempest doesn't necessarily need like rubies and gold. I have planted a sword into the ground, and on this sword, in order to represent my devotion, I've reached a hand around and allowed the blade to bite into my hand, letting blood drip down before pulling back to begin my prayer.
Awesome. So you begin this prayer to Tempest, and as you mentioned, divining the outcome of battle, that's an important thing to do. It's not a specific skill that Tempest provides, but there are two things that Tempest really does care about, which is honor and courage. The Ruby Empire prides itself on duty-bound civilians, soldiers, clerics, and more who will serve the nationalist cause above all else. And through order, we can achieve peace for not just the Ruby Empire, but for all nations, especially the decrepit, chaotic, bloodthirsty Black Jade lords. And you find yourself communing with the spirit of Tempest. He is attempting to infuse your sword, your hand, and your body with the extra might that you can then convey through a bit of a ritual to the rest of the troops in your brigade. You feel a sense of kinship. Now, it's not often that you'll be able to explicitly speak directly to Tempest. You have not built enough of rapport with him yet. With an 18, I can't give you any more than this. But you find yourself feeling inspired by this. You think that maybe tomorrow might be a successful fight.
Okay.
So as you're reflecting on this, I'll say that you hear footsteps outside, heavy leather boots, and eventually a voice. How are things going in there?
I'm gonna take a moment. I'm not gonna answer immediately. Just continue the prayer, and just let my hand heal a little bit with, I don't know, cleric magic. Just heal from the wound that I inflicted in order to honor Tempest.
And we'll say you do have like regular scars from this common practice, but all of them healed up partly because of this divine power that's been given to you.
I'm going to stand up from my prayer and take a step back, really just allowing the shrine that has been honestly kind of hastily built, give it space before I turn back to the general.
Yeah. So, as you do this, I'll say that this person on the outside, he simply bides his time until you eventually find yourself in a place where you're ready. So he's not in a rush. Do you step out of the tent, or do you wait in there silently?
I step out of the tent.
Okay. When you do so, you see standing next to you a human man of average height. He's got like salt and pepper hair with a short military cut, not too different from your own. He has a very finely groomed white mustache that's kind of curled at the tips. This is something he must take some amount of pride in. And I would describe it as a general look. He looks fairly Russian in terms of his skin complexion, his facial structure. And this is General Cedric Marin. He is the Supreme Commander in General of the Red Atyugs, the person you report to. And as he stands at the ready, he has sort of like an erect stance and is simply waiting for you to exit, seemingly to respect the time that you had with Tempest. And he says, "All right. I hope that there's good news for tomorrow's ambush."
I have done my duty. I have communed with Tempest, and from what I've been able to interpret, for what little that may be, I believe that tomorrow will guide us to victory.
He nods, and then he sort of clicks his feet together. He says, Great. And so no deviations then.
As far as divine interpretation goes, we are currently on the correct path.
He leans in close to you, speaking in such a way as to not necessarily be heard by the other 10 members of your battalion. He says, Winton.
Sir.
Tomorrow's battle isn't particularly significant in the scheme of things, but every day as King Grimthorn's forces start being forced outward by these necrotic beasts that have started taking over the land, I fear that their troops are going to start getting more aggressive. We can't have any losses on our hands tomorrow, and you are the one thing standing between our troops and a never-ending cycle of death and resurrection in the hands of King Grimthorn. Promise me this. When you are fighting, keep an eye out for your fellow troops. But I need you alive more than any of the others. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I know that'll be a difficult decision for you to make, with Tempest pulling you towards courage and action. But your job as a cleric should be first and foremost to keep us in the fight. Good night. I will see you in the morning.
Good night, sir.
He briskly walks away, doesn't look behind him, seems sure-footed. He enters his tent and he turns out the light.
All right, I am going to, I'm going to take a step back into the tent and go back to the shrine real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get down on one knee, and I'm, once again, I'm going to reach my hand out and grip the sword. The blood is probably dry at this point, so I'm going to let it drip down again. And I'm going to pray to Tempest that I'm able to fulfill my duty and that I can follow the general's orders and not go after anyone who's absolutely gone, and keep myself safe for in order to continue our fight.
Yeah. As you do this, you receive a vision that comes to you. It's, again, not extremely clear. You're not in a place where you're directly having verbal discussions with Tempest, but you see a bit of a flash, an image of a battlefield, of a horde of zombies that are strangely sprawled out in organized lines and ranks, holding weapons of blunt varieties, and they are approaching you. You discern from this that one of the most important things for your troops to keep in mind is to watch out for flanking maneuvers that will identify and leverage the blind spots of your creatures. Whatever ambush strategy you set up needs to keep into consideration the fact that these zombies may not travel as just one pack.
Okay, I'm going to take note of that, and just kind of based on that, I'm going to ensure that when we rise, because it's army squadron, probably early risers, that we have the Utyugs prepared in ambush points for us to both have riders and to just have some backup prepared in a back line so that we can retreat when these apparently organized undead, which is just weird,
Yes.
come at us.
Awesome. So you take note of this, you prepare to rest, and as you would predict, you're preparing for an early morning preparations for a grand battle ahead.
So, at this point in time, the next morning, you have a sunrise, which is right at the point at which you would find yourself in the biggest advantage. Typically, the hordes are slow to move. They don't have much of a itinerary for their march schedule. So, your troops, prepare yourselves to ride. Each of you grabs a large ruby with an encrusted symbol of the Empress herself on it. You activate them, and then from it, come directly these Atiyugs. They are conjurations from your rubies. And you immediately, in a motion that looks kind of like, I imagine like Legolas when he jumps onto the warg in real time, you literally do a run, jump, place the ruby underneath your feet, and then saddle directly onto the Atiyugs as you begin riding into combat, eventually creating this wolf spider-like trap as you bury as much of yourselves as possible, preparing to strike. Battle then commences.
as the zombies approach and you attack them, you find yourselves vastly outnumbered. There are only about 12 of you in the battalion, but as an advanced vanguard of the Empire's troops, your entire point is to cut off key movements of the troops, not to necessarily push, like fully rout or defeat any major enemy units. Fortunately, with the upper hand, your troops begin to do well in combat. To represent your army, why don't you just roll for me? Let's do two. Just do 2 luck rolls. We're gonna do some d20s, and then I'm gonna add your group's proficiency as a result of your advancements.
All right. 13 plus proficiency,
Yep.
15.
Great. And then one more time.
All right. 7.
Great. So this tells the story of how the fight played out. With that initial ambush, I'm gonna fix that as we're talking. With that initial ambush, you find yourselves on the upper leg. You see these Adjugs grab and drag these creatures into its gaping maw, eating them in real time as you see the decay of flesh from these creatures. But as Atyogs begin to get surrounded, you see that they have been equipped with weapons. These are spears or halberds or rusty machetes, or to be more specific, they are these blunt instruments that they use to begin whacking your creatures as much as possible. You try to navigate around, but eventually you see that some of your fellow troops are beginning to be brought down in the midst of combat. I'm rolling for you in the second half of battle.
As soon as I see them go down, I do my job. I get off. I start running towards them to pick them back up.
So as you normally would, you cast your spells. You bring them back from the edge of death. I want you. Oh boy! So there are 12 troops. You're one of them. Commander Cedric is one of them. I'm gonna roll to see who is being affected. Actually, let's roll to see how many of your troops are actively at risk in the second half of combat.
Okay.
Oh, I rolled a 19, which is bad because it's a high number. Generally, whatever my marked language is, we go to the higher end of that. So I'm gonna say that 5 of your troops are at risk of death. Now we're gonna roll briefly to describe your effectiveness in trying to save them.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
General Cedric said to kind of stick around those that I'm especially close with. Are any of the 5 going down ones that I'm especially
Why don't you
close
roll
with?
luck for me?
High is that or high?
No, a high is always good for you.
Okay.
That's how, yeah.
18 if plus 2 for proficiency.
Yeah, it so happens that your 2 closest friends aren't the ones that are being immediately threatened.
Yes.
These are 5 other troops that you've allied with for many years as you've practiced. Hello, hi. Okay, hi, hello.
Letting you know I was here.
Yeah. So, as this is happening, you need to try to save these people. Now, we're going to assume that you're doing your basic cleric things. Mm-hmm. Do you want to do anything different from that in some way? This is more troops immediately threatened by these hordes of zombies than you would have expected. I also want to point out that King Grimthorn isn't there. This is an advanced flank of some sort of troop, and you are trying to cut them off. As I play a little bit of music that I am now noticing is not coming on over the speaker, huh?
Okay.
That is a thing that is happening.
How close are the people that just went down? Like in terms of to me and to each other?
They are spread out. Randomly rolling for how close together they are. Jeez Louise. They are literally, I roll very low. They are in 5 different sectors of the battlefield.
Okay.
It almost seems as though you only really have enough time to save 1, maybe 2, depending on what you do.
I sprint toward, like, in generally one direction, like going past one. As I pass one that's down, I'm going to cast Aid as a bonus action.
Okay.
To 30 feet, just bring him up to 5 hit points.
Cool.
Keep going.
So, Comrade Private Airwin, you look at him, you cast a spell on him, and he begins to embolden himself. I'm going to individually roll to see if he survives just on the merit of that. What do you do for the next person?
For them, I'm going to immediately run as fast as I can, healing touch or cure wounds on him to bring him up as much as I can.
Okay, so Mace Rawl, you see her that she's been knocked off of her Adyug, and you give healing word as she's been downed in combat, and she's going to pick up, and I'm gonna. Do you do anything else with her?
Let's see. How close is she between?
They're far. They just happen to be far. I rolled very poor luck for your battalion. Okay. This could go really poorly for you.
I'll I'll just bless her, like a quick concentration as much as I can
Okay.
before I start moving on.
Cool. So I'm seeing how well she survives.
Okay.
And then keep going. You have maybe one last person you might be able to help, and the other two I'm just going to roll without your help at all.
Okay, can I do the same thing, sprint by, and then cast Healing Word at
Yeah.
range, and then
Yeah,
try
yeah,
to get to the last person, try to get 4?
Yeah. So Minthrall is on the other side of Aelwal, and you're able to do that for her as well. So that's it. The other two, who knows? Maybe Cedric helps them. Let's find out. Cool. So I'm quickly narrating what happened over the course of about 30 minutes of combat as things are going on. I think what your troops were not fully expecting was that as part of the zombie brigade, which you knew they would be equipped with weapons, what you were not prepared for was that they would be so organized. Instead of them coming in a slow horde and basically just targeting the person that was closest to them, they systematically thinned their forces in such a way as to make sure that the Atyogs couldn't have peripheral vision of them, and then use these blind spots on your creatures to approach, going for the rider, not the creature. It's like they were specifically prompted not to whack this tanky, devouring thing, but to go for your allies directly. And I rolled a couple of things. So here's how the battle played out. Some of your troops get cordoned off. Some of them begin to take damage from these weapons that are flying at them. I said that 5 of them were at risk. Maybe they got knocked off. Maybe they were shot. Maybe their Atyog itself was brought down. And ultimately, you helped 3 of them, and 2 others are completely unhelped. I rolled to see what happens with General Cedric, and I rolled a natural 20. So Cedric comes in, and he rides his Atyog into combat. He snatches up several troops and is able to completely save one of the other 5 that you weren't able to get to. I rolled for the other 3. 2 of them are able to bolster themselves, get back up to their HP that you provided to them. They were able to rapidly switch through some of their rubies in order to conjure like a phantom steed in order to get them out of ways of combat. This battle is not going well for you, but at least they're surviving. One of the 3 that you were trying to help isn't able to fully get back off the front lines, and you see that he is taking blow after blow from these zombie creatures and is in a place where he is basically surrounded. To go in and rescue him would be at the direct cost of the safety and security of the other 11 that General Cedric specifically said you're trying to maintain the status quo for victory towards. What do you do?
I look at him. I bow my head, and Tempest, take him to your gates. And I turn away from him as I look back at the people that I have around me, and I'm assuming I'm on the front line right now. I cast Bless on the general and on a couple other people.
Yeah, that Bless enables them to start clawing through several more swaths of these zombie troops. And that helps you to turn the tide in such a way as where you're not fully routed as a unit. And so at these critical junctures, you were able to, like I said, you're able to keep these riders on their mounts, essentially, which is really important based on the way that this Conjure Beast works. So as you turn back, you notice that at least of the 2 that you helped, of the 3 that you helped, 2 of them, they're able to survive and make it out. You look back and, Private Adya, I'm gonna forget the names that I made up, but I'll just say his name is Private Paytar. You notice that as he turns back and he sees you turning away from him and reuniting the troops, he is happy. You notice that he's happy to see that the rest of the brigade, the battalion, has been able to regroup, which he would know from his training is pivotal to your overall success. And so as he stands on his beast and he prepares for the horde to slowly surround and brutalize him, he simply gives you the solitary and customary salute, and he fights till his last breath is taken from him as the horde overcomes him and the Atyog, which, upon being completely destroyed, simply turns back into the ruby from which it was created, and his body is the only other thing that lies there. The rest of the fight plays out with you keeping basically a stasis. You had a really good first half, not gonna lie, but you had a bad second half, and that resulted in a stalemate. And you leave the battlefield with this solemn feeling that your friend there might have been lost. But then, at the last second, right when the battle is ending, as a result of you turning away and helping your other units, you are struck in the back twice by an arrow, by 2 arrows to be specific. And as you are on your beast, you struggle to maintain consciousness. You eventually slump off as you hear the General Cedric saying, Winton! And I would have you do some rolls here, but we already know what's gonna happen. Your body ceases. This shot, as devastating as it could be, was coated in a kind of poison that seeps into your blood and makes it impossible for you to be healed. You cast desperately on yourself, trying to bring yourself back up. Come on. But it's almost as if your vitality is being siphoned off to something or someone else. And so you die. Back to the present. As I transition here. Perhaps, maybe. Yeah. The red shirt does it.
Sure.
So, at this point, you wake up. Blood coming from your throat as you're trying to figure out what on earth is going on.
Can I reach any of, like, can I feel my back, like, where I felt the arrows enter?
Yeah, they are still there. You are on your back. You feel that after you fell off, it lodged the arrows deeper into your sternum. And unfortunately, you are in a tremendous amount of pain. And what's worse than that is you're experiencing a kind of paralysis that is induced by death, like a comatose state where you are unable to control your body. You can imagine it like sleep paralysis. And as you awake, you hear some sounds coming from just near you on the battlefield. You hear Commander Cedric talking. And I'm going to put him back on screen for this.
Do I have to roll to hear what he says, or is the battlefield like quiet enough that
It's pretty quiet. Roll perception, listening here. So, Winton, unable to move.
7.
7, great. So, I'll describe in sequence what you hear over the course of about 15 minutes. You hear, that's the money, and then you hear,
would I recognize like what is happening based on my experience on the front lines?
Yeah,
Or my
history? This is more of what you'd be trained in the academy.
So medicine?
No, history.
Okay. So my experience in Tomb Step. A nat 1. I am in pain. I don't know what's happening.
You are history. You are history. Yeah, maybe Winton is history. The good news is you don't have to wait too long, but this will cost you a little bit. Eventually, as the voice gets closer, you do recognize that it is General Cedric, and he's talking to one of your allies, the one that you saved yesterday. And he says, all right, the next one. And one of your allies speaks up. She says, General, I don't understand. Surely we can do something for Winton. If we don't have a cleric, then we're not going to have what it takes. And he interrupts her. Silence. You know the policy. In the Black Jade Lords, none of our troops can be left here. We can't take them back with us. We need to guarantee that they're unable to be resuscitated. Separate the head from the body. And you hear her go, yes, Commander. And she takes her halberd and starts decapitating the heads of some of the other troops that are there. Some enemies, zombies, some, like your ally, Petar, she cuts through his neck, and you hear kind of the flesh being sliced. The voices are getting closer. They're about 25 feet from you. And they are just systematically going through and executing every single being, double tapping, so to speak, by decapitating every single creature that is in line. They are roughly 40 seconds from you.
I try to move as much.
I need you to make a con save. You are overcoming the pain of death. And if you don't do this fast enough, they'll just decapitate you.
17.
17. You start to move yourself, and your fingertips and toes begin to wiggle. You have just a bit of control, but that's not enough. You need more, and they're getting closer. They went from 40 feet, now they're 30 feet away. Your ally speaks again. Surely a restoration of some kind would be able to bring him back. Stop. This hurts me as much as it does you, but if we don't follow protocol, then something terrible would happen. You wouldn't want tomorrow to find out that Winton himself is leading the enemy's forces against us, would you? Would you want to fight against him? She paused and says, no, Commander.
I want to try to heal myself with as much movement as I get. I'm trying to get up, trying to stop whatever this is.
They take a few more steps closer. Give me another con save. You need 2 more successes to actually stand up.
Gosh dang it. 6.
You find yourself frozen in fear as they get closer. They continue to talk, and she readies her halberd. Commander, if I may be so bold, this man saved me. I just can't do this.
Do I recognize her? Like,
you recognize that this is Maywall, I think I described her as, one of the ones that you helped to survive yesterday's battle. He says, General Cedric says, fine, then I will do it. Give me your weapon. I will have to make a report of this. And she says, aye, Commander. Roll me con save.
8.
They step a little closer. Now, what you don't know is that every time you fail, because of the process of you slowly waking up, the DC is going down a little bit. So this one actually was a success when you add your con. So you have 2 successes. You need 1 left. They're now 15 feet away. They step closer to you. Hold on.
Just keep shaking it. Get it ready.
Come on, Tempest.
And he pauses. He says, Tempest, I know not who you are or who you care for, but if this was really a loyal soldier of yours, then bring him back to me in one piece and let him not be corrupted by the necrotic influences. And he's going to roll a religion roll. He rolled a 2. And he says, he waits to see if something happens.
My general is not a religious man. I don't know why he even prayed. Maybe it was for my sake.
And then he says, right. Maybe Winton was right. Maybe Tempest was never really with us. And he prepares his halberd. Give me 1 last con save.
Desperate.
Dude.
16.
16 is good. You were able to provide that somatic movement of your hand, and you were able to move your lips and cast. I mean, is it spare the dying? Is it a healing spell? What are you doing here?
Okay, based on how I'm feeling with 2 arrows shoved into my back and my general about to cut off my head, would I feel it's easier? I feel like cure wounds are healing word, the healing word, because so I could like actually move. Because technically that gets me back up. Just come on.
Yeah, so you open your lips to speak, and your voice sounds foreign to you. You hear something, and you realize that somebody's speaking through you. There's a voice that comes through when you open your mouth. It's speaking words that aren't your own. It almost seems to possess you. And you notice that around your neck, there is a shard of Black Jade that has been tethered to a necklace. And it begins to speak through you to you. Now to do this, I need the entire table's help. The voice you hear is not one but many. It's a chorus, a haunting cacophony of voices that somehow lived before you but live now through you. These spectral voices are going to speak. So I'm going to say something, and I need the rest of the table, not named Winton, to, in this similar creepy whispering way, repeat it back. And we're going to pull off this aesthetic, this feeling for you. So, ready? Table? So this is what you hear. Wake up. Wake up!
Wake up!
They need you now.
I need you now.
Come home, Winston.
Come home, Winston.
Wake up!
Wake up!
Wake up!
Wake up!
And suddenly,
Shut up!
you cast healing word on yourself. Your voice returns to you, and you begin to move your limbs. You can stand up. I need you to roll me initiative as Cedric raises his axe, or his halberd.
A 10.
He beats you. His axe comes down, and you barely move in time. So he's not going to get just a straight paralysis attack on you for an auto crit. It's a regular attack roll. And I have your AC here. And he misses. So at the last moment, you roll to the side as his halberd strikes into the ground, and he startles back. Him and Maywall both looking at you at the same time, going, he's awake. Cedric says, stop. He could be possessed by them right now. Don't let down. What do? You have initiative right now, so you get to act first.
I look up. Okay, first off, what do I see around me? Like, the general and Maywell's right there. Like, where's everyone else? What's going on?
I'm going to give you a second to react. Goodness gracious. You see almost as much as you possibly need to. So you see the decay of bodies. You also see that some adjuncts are being tended to over by the campsite that you were originally from. We're going to say that's about a half mile away. But this is no man's land. So it's just the two of them doing their duty.
I'm not dead!
He's like, stop!
I'm not dead! Yet! I'm not dead, General!
You hear Maywell say, Commander, what's coming from his mouth? What is he saying? And he says, I know not who you are. You stink of death. You reek you have the essence of death on you. Clearly they've taken hold of you. Maywell, prepare to attack.
General, no! It's me! I'm not dead!
This is your last chance to do anything before he attacks you. 3, 2...
Guidance on myself.
Yep, and then?
I'm going to take the dodge action.
Yeah, sure, why not? So you're not attacking, but you're kind of staying there. You're just making sure they're hard to attack to you. So I'm going to roll with disadvantage on their attacks. He attacks first. And with that dodge, you are able to successfully dodge out of the way from striking you again as you're upright. You still feel blood from the arrows in your back dripping as you begin to move along the dusty plains. And then I'm going to roll for the resolve of Maywell. She does eventually button up and follow her commands from her commander. So she attacks you and does very poorly.
Please,
So
I'm not of the dead!
she's like, what is he saying, Captain? And he seems to be fully focused. What do you do?
I want to understand why they can't understand what I'm saying.
You're going to stick it out? You're going to stay there?
I'm fully focused on trying to dodge and like block with my shield to make sure I don't get hit.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna fast forward some narration. Every time you speak, you agitate him further. He reacts to you in a way that suggests that he doesn't even hear the words coming out of your mouth. And then, moreover, over time, it feels that Maywell becomes increasingly convinced of Cedric's decision that you are, in fact, possessed by one of the Black Jade Lords and are being used against them. They will continue to attack you until you either kill them or leave.
okay. I still want to take the turn to like try to understand what's going on as I take.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not going to take the dodge action. I want to fully focus on trying to understand this.
Okay, so I guess I'll let you do like a dedicated insight check.
Okay. A 23.
Yeah. With a 23, not only are you sure that they're just following their policy, their protocol when something like this were to happen to one of their allies, but you actually detect that he's very scared. He's never seen something like this before, and the way that you are being possessed in his eyes, the way that you are being possessed must be something that is new and as a result of this encroaching or increased corruption in the area. He thinks that you might be one of the greatest threats that they'll have to face. That's why he's trying to kill you now. He then turns and he says, Maywell, go and get the others. We need to finish this now before he escapes. And she begins to run away in order to recruit the rest of your allies to come and finish you off.
Okay. Does he manage to hit me because during that turn, or does she manage to hit me? Does she attack?
He
me?
does. Oh, I rolled. Hold on, I rolled twice. You are not dodging. He still does not. You are able, partly because of your heavy armor and partly because of your movements, are able to make it difficult for him to strike you.
I am going to, because I understand this, I'm going to start taking steps back. Like I'm not attacking. This is my general, and these are my people. I can't hurt them, so I start backing up, just going like. Still like looking at them, but backing carefully, or not carefully, as fast as I can away without taking my eyes off them.
So he says, he's trying to escape! Everyone, please, I need your help now! And Maywell is dutifully moving back to get the other troops. In this process, the whispers are going to start again, so I need the table's help for this. So, descend into shadows.
Descend into shadows.
Come home, Winton.
Come home.
You see as a dark mist emanates from the stone on your chest, and you begin to misty step in the darkness, disappearing among the ruins, remains, and decay of those that are there. You hear Cedric screaming after you, No! No! Please! We need to secure this now! Vacate the perimeter! Make sure that he is isolated! And unfortunately for him, you are going to be able to successfully make your way away from this battlefield without any of his troops being able to properly find you.
To the voices, I actually want to speak, as like they're essentially dragging me away. My home was in front of me.
They will not respond to you directly. They will continue to give you commands. And as you begin to hear, like, take on this magical aura that is pushing you into the necrotic fields, you hear them say, if I could get the table one more time, you hear them say, borrow our power. And you feel souls enter your flesh, swirling inside of you from the stone as they shoot up into your mind, down into your chest, and you feel black veins emanate from the aspects of your body. I want you to immediately gain 10 maximum HP, as if you were borrowing the life force of these creatures before you. Now, we established that you would do this. It is your current HP that you've marked down. And at this point, you escape off. If I were to continue to narrate what happens to Winton, you continue to sojourn. Your soul and the spirits inside speaking to you, saying, come home, and you continue to try to push deeper and deeper in to the Black Jade Lords. But unfortunately, you keep arriving at blockers in your way. The Black Jade Lords themselves, leaders of the Vampiric clan or the Crypts or the zombies themselves, that stop you from moving any further, saying that it is their domain and you are not to trespass on their property. They seem to be at a standstill among themselves due to some recent and unnerving conflicts in the area that are not of their own making. And so you are blocked from getting to the center of the corruption, the Umbral corruption, which is where your heart is pulling you. You're going to drift for several more weeks, trying to find an inn, trying to meet with someone to allow you safe passage, and you are unable to prove yourself worthy of that passage during that time. What else do you do over these 3 weeks of desperately trying to find a way to the center of the corruption that your souls are pulling you towards?
Do the people begin to understand me now? Can I speak?
Yeah, so you notice something very strange. When you speak to people, at first they think that they're hearing multiple voices at once, but the more time you spend with certain individuals, which we'll say you have a little bit of time to do so, they begin to hear the one voice that commands them all, your own. But what's funny about that is the people who are able to hear you first, you observe, are those who have already forfeit their soul in terms of willpower to live. These are people who are down on their luck, not necessarily caring about their own well-being. They seem to commune with your souls, and therefore you, even faster than those who have a lot of willpower to live.
And during these weeks, being tormented by the whispers that refuse to just be quiet.
Yeah.
I want to try to get rid of the black jade that's around my neck. That's where the voices are coming from.
Every time you reach your hands to grab it and pull it off, you experience a sharp, stinging pain of necrotic energy that shoots through your body and deals you real damage. If you were to try to remove it from you, you would immediately go blind, and you would lose the capability to use that maximum HP we discussed, dropping you down, and then dealing damage on top of that. If you were to completely remove it, I would roughly estimate you could live maybe 2 minutes before you turn to dust.
So that's the sense I get when I try to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yikes. Black veins are always bad signs.
Do I still have the black veins just on me?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, disturbing. I guess, other than that, I try to find anyone not of the Black Jade Lords, anyone that will listen to me and help me.
You journey, and I am going to show something I was going to show later, but I think it's helpful for this image. The closer you get within the Black Jade Lords, the more you learn about it. And what I'm about to show you is the representation of your 3 weeks journeying through the lands and finding more information along your path. Don't worry, we'll get to learn more about this in a little bit. But what I want to direct your attention to, and I think I can actually do this directly. Yeah, I can actually do this. Very cool. So you trend from I'm doing this both sideways and upside down, great. So you trend from this combat zone where you were fighting at the Red Atyug's Vanguard camp, over and through Thirstwood, across the Grave Mist Range, into the Gloomgrass Savanna, and then all the way until you eventually find yourself basically kicked out of all of these terrains until you reach yourself at the very top. This is a place called Death's Draught Tavern. known as, for some people, the last chance that they'll ever have. And this tavern is a place where weary travelers and pilgrims eventually meet up in the attempt to do many things. Some to die well, some with this desperate hope, often from legends alone, to find a new life through either resurrection or some kind of undead afterlife. It is a place for desperate people, and over 3 weeks, that's where you're eventually going to end up, as you find yourself completely stuck. You have no options forward, and yet your soul tells you that you must move closer to the Umbral corruption. I didn't telegraph this to you, so I'm going to say that you started with a set amount of max HP. Over these 3 weeks, you observe in real time that your max HP begins to decay. And so I said add 10, we're going to say add 15, but over those 3 weeks, it drops all the way down to where it currently is. You don't have much more time to live unless you are able to satisfy the souls that are within you. Cool beans, got it?
Cool beans.
Great.
I feel like Winton got a lot quieter during this journey.
So, at this point, we're going to, unfortunately, we're going to leave you down there in the Black Jade Lords, and we're going to up and over and over and over all the way until we find ourselves in the Lunar Conservatory. If you were to go up into the Sapphire Scholars, you would know that there were 3 institutions of learning there. One that is dedicated, the Solar Conservatory, to applied science, to engineering, to an open source of information that the people deserve to have. There's the Celestial Conservatory, where students of various kinds and scholars of different backgrounds celebrate astrology, divination, and their connection to the celestials and the stars. And finally, the Lunar Conservatory, the one that perhaps the average outsider knows the least about. The Lunar Conservatory is famous for people who are, one, for being an extremely difficult and prestigious institution to get into as a student. Liken it to an Ivy League college of sorts. But more importantly, that everything that they do is top secret. They do not disclose the research to others for 2, maybe selfless or selfish reasons. The first is that the Lunar Conservatory is doing the most cutting edge bleeding technological or scientific research. The stuff that they do has the potential to shape the world, carve it in their image, and they don't want that information getting into the wrong hands. But the other reason is that the faculty at the Lunar Conservatory have a notoriously cutthroat approach to their academic research. Those who publish first, the Library of Evolution, which is the central authority for the Sapphire Scholars, has an extremely rigorous review and, for lack of a better phrase, copywriting and patenting process. Those who submit their research first to Truthkeeper Prionis and to the library are guaranteed, with absolute certainty, a degree of control and autonomy over the way that research proceeds. It's the same way as having a license to an engineered product that you're then going to allow people to use. And so for that reason, in secluded labs, you find sorcerers or wizards or sages and scholars working feverishly for that next big breakthrough. And that's where we're going to go right now. You step into the Lunar Conservatory, and with their vaulted stone and marble ceilings, you were to deck in and out of these literal ivory towers, moving into what might be one of the most significant. This is the laboratory of Audia Weaver, who is an extended faculty that is one of the most pronounced and prestigious scholars at the institution, but has, in times gone by, declined the position of being on the Council of Scholars, headmaster of the Lunar Conservatory, and on the Council of Scholars at the Library of Evolution, specifically because she wanted to continue her research. And this is what she looks like. So Audia Weaver has a little bit of drow influence with like this platinum silver hair and dark skin, but she has at her wake a tall, more regal gait. She has a persistent stare and perseverance in her nature. She is relatively stern, very competitive, and at the core has a curiosity that seeks to constantly be skeptical of and questioning of the truths that those in her midst, her contemporaries, have thus unto this point developed. And she's working with someone that recently took on professorship at the conservatory under much scrutiny and has been studying alongside her in the hopes of making his own breakthroughs. Hey Ben, why don't you introduce your character?
Sure. So Tom is a young professor. He's just graduated out of the graduate program at the Lunar Conservatory, and he is this kind of tall, gaunt man. He's a half-elf with a little bit of stubble, kind of disheveled black hair, and generally unremarkable clothing except for this cape, which in the Sapphire Scholars is kind of ubiquitous, but it is what marks you as a member of the faculty of the Sapphire Scholars. It's a cape with the insignia of a crescent moon, that anybody outside would see that and say, well, this person clearly has some sort of affiliation with the program. And Tom is kind of interesting because if you asked Tom, he would say that his life really began one day in undergrad when a faculty member from the Lunar Conservatory came to give a talk titled, "Where Does Magic Come From?" And that was Adia Weaver. And she made the case that all of these other fields of research, whether they be engineering or research into the celestial, or even some of the more, I guess, arcane, in both the positive and negative connotations of the word, domains within the Sapphire, or within the Lunar Conservatory, rather. The only question worth asking is where magic comes from. Because we have these gemstones that we dig up from the ground, and if they've always been there, then there's a limited amount, right? They're this finite resource, and if we're using them, we need to be careful of it. But if they're coming from somewhere else, if there are a growing number, then that means there may be some way to manufacture them. It may be possible to make our own magic and sidestep all of the mining, effectively all of what society is built around, and have unlimited magic.
So at this point, so we're fast forwarding from this moment when you had this experience listening to her talk. Throughout your history, you would study as an undergrad, proving yourself not necessarily because of your extended breadth of knowledge across multiple schools of magic. You were much more theoretical in your framework. If you can crack even the slightest codes at the atomic level of how magic really works, that could be used to, as a transitive property, figure out maybe where magic originally came from. Obviously, in attending many of her office hours and working alongside her, you developed an interest in the field she was studying and eventually secured an apprenticeship with her, which then continued to carry on even after you graduated and took on an adjunct professor status within the university. I'll ask you this, do you yourself do lectures? Do you want to spread that to other students? Do you teach what you've been working on so far?
No, I don't. I feel like it is because of her stature within the Lunar Conservatory. Adia was kind of voluntold into giving a talk. You wanted to recruit new students, but if you have, I guess, a lab of a reasonable size, you don't necessarily want to tell people what it is that you're researching, because you want to be the first person to do it.
Absolutely.
And so especially as a young faculty member within an established lab, I have access to students to help me do my work, and I do not want anybody to know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Tom has something to prove. I mean, you've not yet published a paper of any real renown. You have to complete your status as a student, and there are some papers involved with that. But there is what's called the internal library publications, which are only reserved for those that produce something of such renown that the Council of Scholars themselves negotiate with you the terms under which you'll be able to actually publish, protect, and then further research with their money those very things. It's a very rigorous process. Nothing you've ever produced has been accepted into that particular stance yet. And that's the thing that you're working on right now. So you're in her lab as the two of you are working. She leans over particular tinctures and figures as she's trying to collect some notes on some data that she's collected from gemstones that she's allowed to sift in very specific surfaces, solutions, liquids, and even some like solid base, like certain types of onyx sand or like a mixture of fluids. And what she's trying to do that you're aware of is distill down to the smallest possible gemstone for which there is a measurable magical energy to it. Is it something that is assembled over time as a direct result in proportionality to the size of the gemstone? Is it something that you can still maintain even when it turns into a shard, like a subset of a gemstone? She doesn't know. That's what she's researching. But that's not the focus of your conversation. She's holding in her hands your paper and is discussing it with you. So tell us a little bit about your paper, and then she's going to give you feedback on it.
Sure. So dating gems, figuring out how old it is that they are, is kind of hard, right? So obviously the first thing that you would think of is like chemiluminescence. You shine a light on rocks, and based off of how much they shine back, you can get some idea of how old they are based off of their chemical properties. And the thing about gemstones is they're magic. And so they respond kind of strangely to light, and it's always hard to say whether any of the standard rules that apply to more mundane rocks would actually apply to gemstones. And so people have gone down that vein for a while with increasing precision of instruments. And he's decided to kind of step outside of that general realm of research and say, we know that there are magical fields that gems put off. And mostly they're not observable, but we've seen, at least on the macro scale, if you look at, say, the Opal Refuge or the Black Jade Lords, there are magical effects that are not confined to somebody weaving a gemstone, at least as far as we know. And we can maybe measure some of that in small gemstones, but if conservation laws are real, right, that they are giving off some amount of energy, then presumably they are getting less magical over time. You have maybe a little bit of heat coming off of a gemstone attuned for fireball, and over time, on obviously geological scales, given that these are so old, you might expect one of these gems to become less magical.
Yeah.
And so his paper is the result of drawing a lot of gemstones out of the seam in the I forget what it is called, the Topaz lands.
Yeah, the Topaz tribes.
The Topaz tribes, because there's this great fissure in the ground, and the Topaz tribes are on these nice plains where, as it turns out, when you look into this fissure, you see these very nice sedimentary layers. And in geology, when you have layers like that, you know that the things on the bottom are the oldest, just because that's how gravity works. Dirt happens over time.
She's looking at your paper, just like, this is a stunning revelation. Gravity affects.
No, this is for the table.
Yeah, no, I gotcha.
Yeah, you are ready to defend this thesis.
This is turning.
So I had Ben for his backstory write a literal 40-page thesis, and that you can find that on
abstract.
You can find that on the Notion. Just go and check it out afterwards.
And so anyway, because you can see these different layers, you could say, if these gemstones were created by compression or sort of normal geological process, you'd be able to say that these gemstones are older than each other, just by the order that they occur in this fissure. And so if you draw a lot of the same type of gemstone out, say create water gems, then you would expect the older ones to be less magical, pound for pound. And so through the magic of getting a lot of grad students to put in a lot of hours in the lab, we've cast magic.
Yeah.
We've cast these spells over and over again, and we found that regardless of luminescence, and regardless of weight, and regardless of size, and regardless of chemical purity, whenever we cast these spells with this gemstone, we get exactly the same result, quantifiably the same. So for some reason, either we're violating conservation laws. This magic it's even though it is exerting force on the world, it's never changing, or all these gems are exactly the same age, despite the fact that they're different locations within the earth.
Yeah. Okay. So great summary. So she's reading through this, and the main thing that she's focusing on is notation, persuasion, is the way that you document, how you cite resources, the way that you visualize your data, and so she'll say something along the lines of, okay, on page 37 here, remember that Professor Valeforth is actually working on this right now. If you're going to cite this, you want to make sure that you're pulling from the study that he did most recently over at the Arctic lab outlet. One of the things that he found that I found interesting was, and then she explains that to you, blah, 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 in the Arctic zones, we can have much closer geological relationships between blah, 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 and so she tells you that, and she says, okay, and on page 47, when you're thinking about future areas for research, one of the things that I think that you should be trying to push for is to instill a new laboratory near that crevice that you've mentioned that can allow us to isolate for the elements there. If we can do better studies at the actual sites where you were able to find such clear delineation of geological structures, then funding that might get you out there could end up being the thing that you need to really establish yourself in the academic world. There are other ways you could do this, of course. The Lunar Conservatory isn't famous for funding new labs at field research projects, but I think this is very good. But I have to challenge you on something. You make this assumption about the conservation of energy. And it seems like all over your paper, you seem to presume that all of the energy that's in this world has this stasis between matter and energy that must always be maintained at all times, that the gemstones sort of adhere to those laws. I find it peculiar because you know that our colleagues at the Celestial Conservatory talk about this, that energy can come from other realms or planes that aren't necessarily from Chrysalis. Did you plan on speaking to that in the conclusion of your paper?
Not really. In my mind, there are two directions. I'm not making a full claim about understanding the nature of gemstones. I'm saying that there are two directions, either of which, if true, has huge implications on our world.
I see. So let's talk about areas of further research, because that's going to be one of the questions that the council puts before you if they want to take this in. If you were to, say, receive funding to move deeper into this, what exactly would you be wanting to discover? What kinds of questions, of the two paths that you mentioned, what is exactly you're trying to isolate and perhaps eliminate in your studies?
If we can find a way to... It's hard to isolate conservation loss, but if we can find a way to...
Her eyes, you notice that with like this sort of lavender piercing look, they are always tracking every movement to try to gauge your emotional response to her question. Why don't you roll insight for me?
Sure.
As you think of your response to her question. Tom's first roll.
A nat 1.
So you deeply respect this researcher. She's represented so much of her field, and frankly, she's your only real ally in this space. Most other people are researching much more specific fields than where does magic come from. And so when she is watching you, you get really nervous. You think that she is testing you, and that at any moment she could just bring the hammer down and prove you wrong in a core assumption you've made as part of your paper. But please continue.
Yeah. So there's, as again, two directions. One way would be to isolate out the effect of other planes. If we can find a clean room of some sort that removes all planar effects somehow,
yes,
we'd be able to test this again and determine whether this energy is coming from other planes, or we could see if...
She takes a separate notebook while you're talking, and she's going to hold it in front of her and start jotting down notes based on what you're saying. Keep going.
Or we could measure if these gems are just appearing somehow, or normal matter is being transmuted into these gemstones. We should be able to see the effects of that happening. This was a physical process at some point, or a magical process at some point. And so we could go looking for effects that something would have. So I think the best example of something that we might be able to see like this would be maybe in the Black Jade Lords, the large, there's rumors of this large crater potentially full of a Black Jade, which is strange because normally we see these gemstones underground, and so for them to be on the surface and for them to have seemed to have had a physical effect on the world as if they were falling from the sky, that might be something to look into.
Okay. I personally think that you're making a few leaps here in your justification, because, as you said yourself earlier, my research has, for the last few years, largely confirmed the idea that the decay rate of all gemstones equally, even the strangely formed Black Jade, is uniform. There's no particularities around it that would seem to make sense. But I have to agree that if I were to pick one gemstone to study where the nexus of magic actually comes from, it would be the one that doesn't have the same structure as the others. And certainly the one, as you say, that is geologically the youngest, has come in maybe the past 1,000 years rather than several tens of thousands or even millions of years. I just wish, so she scoots back and she steps up from her chair and she goes back to her own research, and she's sort of absent-mindedly talking over herself as she is looking at her various solutions on the counter. She'll turn and then look at a sapphire that's been put into a particular solution, and then she'll look at something like an emerald that's been put into like a particular mixture of both sand and a different fluid, and then so on and so forth. And she'll say,
I really feel that if only there was any symbol, any demonstration whatsoever that these stones take on or decay an energy in a slightly different way, then it would feel as though there would be something like... And she pauses. And she pulls one of these flasks off of her counter and brings it to her study workbench. With your natural 1 on insight, which I'll continue to hold, you begin to feel like she's lost interest in your paper and is more focused on the stuff that she's been working on. But she stops and looks at it closely. The fluid that's there is not of the traditional kinds. She'd been venturing over time into some more wild-shaped idea, or like strange ideas. And this one was a Black Jade that was completely submerged in blood. And when she looks at it, she says, that can't be right. She seals it, puts on her gloves, and eventually puts it through like a titration sort of system that allows her to analyze it much more closely. And as she looks at it with detail, her eyes widen. She says, "This shard has increased in its magical aura. It's giving off more energy than in the state we found it. Look, come look at this. Why don't you roll investigate for me?"
Yep.
As Tom moves through the room and begins looking a little bit closer at this shard that she's got in her hand.
That's a 15.
15. So with 15, what you notice is typically there is a frequency that gemstones give off. It's a thing that you might be able to observe with like a powerful enough instrument, the way we might measure like Richter scales through devices that watch the Earth's movements. And as you're looking at this thing, it's not necessarily that it's got the same type of pattern, but then is augmented, so it's just a larger version of the same frequency with a higher amplitude. It is changed into a pulse, not a heartbeat, a pulse that goes something like this. It goes... And if you were to study this with enough data, which her machines were doing automatically while you were discussing, you would observe that these peaks are very slightly increasing over time. It suggests that something is adding energy to this Black Jade, which you have never been able to observe with any of her studies with any of the other shards of gemstones. She takes this and she says, I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to discuss your paper tomorrow. Make the changes that I suggested. When you come back, we'll go through final review and a publication process. I've already got a colleague of mine who will be here to do a bit of a peer review before you actually submit it. Tom, why don't you roll insight for me one last time?
17.
You get the sense from her tone that it's not just that she's excited to begin pushing further into this research and wants privacy. You get the sense that she specifically doesn't want you in the room for what's about to happen. Ooh. She says, Tom, please shut the door on your way out. Go ahead and give it the arcane lock, if you would, and tomorrow when you come back here, we'll discuss more about your paper, okay?
Okay.
So you just do that?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't want me there. That's a good reason to leave.
Yep. You're used to her having these like feverish moments of brilliance where she's suddenly trying to like push through a new discovery. I would say with the 17 at this point, you get the sense that she's like even more on high alert than normal. It's very common for people in the Lunar Conservatory to be effectively spying on each other's work to try to get the upper edge to secure a patent or copyright for a particular publication before someone else does. And so it makes sense that she maybe is trying to protect herself from whatever this discovery is. Maybe even regretting explaining it to you in the moment. You shut the door and you go to sleep. Is there anything else that you do before the next day?
You have any spells you could cast? No. I thought about taking knock, but I didn't. No, I think this would be a fairly normal interaction.
Yeah.
I think the breakthrough notwithstanding, because that would be very interesting to me personally in how it ties into my research.
Yeah.
It's not something that your professor says, back off. You don't really want to bite the hand that feeds you, try to eavesdrop, because getting kicked out of the lab means you're just donezo. You are not only not in the lab, you're out of a job and out of a career.
You infer that you would not be able to get an apprenticeship with any of the other scholars of the Lunar Conservatory.
Right.
Maybe you could go to the Solar Conservatory, but they do not have the theoretical background for this.
Right.
So yes, you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning. How's the weather doing outside? It's pretty good. Fair weathers. You hear like a bird chirping on the breeze as you start stepping back through, reporting for your normal time. When do you normally meet with Adia for work, or do you have like a morning routine that you might go through?
Well, yeah. So you go and you eat breakfast.
Yep.
But it's more.
What are you eating? Are you eating at the cafe? Do you make something of your own?
No, yeah, just go to the school cafeteria.
Yeah, cool.
The cheapest, largest amount of food that you can, and you go to the lab.
That is very Tom. So today they are serving. This is just my triple D20.
It's your meat class.
So I wrote it is
meal with disadvantage.
Yeah, it is of
cool.
moderate importance, very bad at a very weird way. And so when I resolve that. Something like a disgusting mystery meat makes perfect sense. So in the cafeteria, whatever the heck they're serving, it's like they took some beast they found, threw it into like a blender, and then they're just serving that with what the word decoration? Garnishes. Yeah. They just like put a garnish on a blended meat sauce.
Yeah, so I go into the cafeteria.
And that's the most calories for your buck.
Right, I look at the sign that says what we're eating today, and it just says meat
With the question
with quotation marks.
Meat of discovery.
And I say I'd like 2.
So you see that the lunch people that are serving it to you, they pour this glop into not even just a bowl but like a cup. So you have 2 little like meat smoothies. Why do you roll a Constitution save as you're drinking this mystery meat?
Go back to the main page.
I see. Yeah. Imagine having Constitution as a. Oh, I have +1.
No, down here for saving throws.
Oh, saving throw. I see. I have +3 saving throw.
Yeah.
That's easy. Yeah, 15.
15, yeah. So
I miss all the time.
I gave you a con save to suggest that it might do something very bad to you. You're able to handle this. You're like, hey, it's not delicious, but it is provided by the institution for free, and I'm gonna drink it because it's gonna give me what I need to get through the day. The meat sauce actually gives you a bit of a boost to your concentration for the day, which will improve your intelligence-related checks if it ever comes down to it. So you feel pretty good, and you end up stepping upstairs to get to the office, and you notice that, and this is surprising to you, the arcane lock that you put on the door last night that you would have expected Adia herself to reinstitute when she left is broken. The door has been opened, and there seems to be a gust of wind coming from inside as though there was a draft settling through the lab. What do you do?
Yeah, I would investigate. That's deeply unsettling. Every professor, if they're not in their office, the door is closed and locked and shuttered.
Very secure. And so when you make your way inside, you see the same lab as before, but there are 2 major changes. The first is that all of the papers that were originally on her desk where she was taking a lot of notes, most of them have been completely taken. They're removed entirely, with some pieces of paper strewn about on the ground. You would infer with a low investigation check that these were taken very quickly by someone. And then, worst of all, those vials behind her that I described earlier, they were also grabbed systematically off the rack, and everything else seems to be normal. You notice that one of the windows, which in that ivory tower that her lab sits in, faces outward to the northeastern quadrant of the conservatory, that the window is open. Other than that, it feels a little cold, and you see on the top of... Actually, I'll stop there. So that is what you see when you enter.
Yeah, so my first impression would be that a burglar or an opposing lab had come in to try to steal some of the work. I would go and look at the window and, I guess, generally look around, but maybe my first guess would be that this was a different lab that was coming after us. And so I would see if there's any like residual magical traces, like why weren't the wards on the windows tripped? Why is anybody just now finding out about this?
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'm the first person to rise, but this would make some noise. This is very, very unusual.
Yeah. So we're just gonna say you look around the room, and why don't you roll me an investigation check to make sense of what's happening here?
Sure.
Based on this weird meat sauce you drank earlier, we're gonna add 2 to your roll.
Okay. That's 3 plus 4 plus 2 is 9.
Okay. You are quite unnerved by this situation, and the most you can make out is that something bad happened here, and these things were taken in a hurry, as I said earlier. You with a 9, you would infer that it's possible everything important could have been taken, but it's strange that most of the traditional books and novels on the walls or some of the other additional like research instruments are still there. So this must have been done very quickly. You don't know why or by whom with this, but you do find something. On the back of the door that you opened when you first entered. As you're looking around, you see that something has been nailed to it. It's your paper, and it has all 50 pages of it nailed through onto the door, and you see a note that's on it. And the note simply reads, research feedback, as though it was like something that she would have given to you. You don't need to roll investigation on this. This is not the way Adia normally would have returned information to you.
She would nail it to my door.
She would now canon. She would absolutely have nailed it to your door instead. So this is like, why would she do that here? Silly Adia. What is she doing? And you go over. I'm assuming you're going to go over it and open it or touch it. I guess tell me if you don't.
Yeah, no, I would go and look at it.
Awesome. So first, give me a bit of a strength check to remove it from the nail that is on the wall here, or you can tear the paper by ripping it from the nail.
Yeah, main page. Trying to think of any way to not use strength to remove a piece of paper from a wall. How about 3? I think I'll just read it as it's there.
Okay. So you see, boom, boom, boom. This nail's still there, you can't remove it, and so you begin to look through some of the research that has been scribbled on to the pages. And why don't you, as you're looking through this, I want you to roll investigation, but you're reading it in a very awkward way, at a high height and with a nail in the middle. I want you to roll investigation with disadvantage.
Sure. So we have a 10 and a 15. 10.
10, okay. So here's how we'll start. You, with a 10, you already can tell that the language being used is not the language Adia would normally use. But 10 is enough to be pretty confident that's her handwriting. You know that it's possible to imitate other people's handwriting. There are even spells that allow you to do that. But you are confident that it at least looks like her handwriting. And as she is jotting down notes on all of the pages of your script, she's extremely detail-oriented. Something begins to emerge from it. It's a little strange, but you might have a precedence for this. Why don't you roll me history and see if you recall some of your previous studies with Adia. This is representative of your time working under her stead.
Yeah, 13.
13? Okay, so you know that this isn't really feedback. You're pretty confident it's something else. Why is she using these strange and archaic words that are basically the academic version of jargon just strewn all over your paper? She knows how to talk like a normal person. So there's something strange going on, and we're gonna give you an opportunity to crack that code. So in the Lunar Conservatory specifically, not something you'd see at other conservatories, the academics are so paranoid about their research being stolen that they've developed a bit of a thieves' cant that they use, where they riddle their text with words that most people wouldn't be able to make sense of, and it's sort of secret code between them. And Adia and you developed one of these as part of your time. At this point, it's almost standard practice for apprentices to pick up the cant of their master as they're learning in their labs. I'm going to read the note that she has, and based on how well you investigate, you'll be able to maybe make some degree of sense out of it. It reads, "Your incantory exegesis on the hermetic symbiosis between ley lines and ethereal conduits evinces an admirable perspicacity. However, permit me to proffer a circumspect elucidation upon the lucani represent in your arcane taxonomy. The ontological interstices between the astral nodes and your elucidated matrix remain unexplored, demanding an epistemological transcendence into the interstitial claim that bifurcates the arcane spectra. See Count's proposal for further research and included inside." And there is a letter underneath it that has a couple diagrams and statements.
How dare she say that about my arcane matrix?
So your eyebrow sort of cocks as you're reading this. You're like, okay, what's actually happening here? Why don't you roll me investigation to see how well you do?
With a mystery meat bonus?
With a mystery meat bonus of 2.
That's 20 plus 2 meat points.
Gotta get those meat points.
2 meat points.
So, immediately, this is what the entirety of her message translates to. She says, "Astounding breakthrough imminent. secure at all costs, find my lab, here's the location. And then included, if you were to flip it back and go into the counter proposal inside for further research, you would see diagrams that seem to elucidate some kind of follow-on experiment in the line with your geological stuff. But the patterns of the drawn lines actually are not representative of these like sedimentary studies that you've done in the past. This is a code of some kind. With the 20, I won't even make you do it. With the 21, you said? 22?
22.
Yeah, you were able to immediately tell that there's something hidden behind one of the bookcases in this room. And the rows of sedimentary lines that are drawn there represent the books that you need to pull in order to secretly access this. This is completely new to you. You didn't even know that this was something in her lab. You thought that the bookcases just had, more depth behind them. So you go over and you pull the. Oh, I guess I won't tell you to do this. Do you follow through on these directions? Do you do it now? Do you do it later?
See, is there anything I would stand there and think? Is there anything that I should look for in this lab? Because now that I know that she discovered something or was on the verge of discovering something, it's very relevant that the samples specifically were stolen. And so I would definitely suspect other labs, and I'm trying to think whether there's any action that I could do right now to get out ahead of this before. But no, there's nothing. And so I would walk over to the bookshelf and I would open or pull out the Weaver Lab handbook.
Yep.
And
follow through on this code that you've seen right here.
Right.
So as you pull these books in sequence, you are correctly able to decipher her code, and you. The bookcase slides in place and reveals a very small alcove. I mean, it is probably 3 feet by 2 feet in size, and the only thing inside of it is a small chest of drawers, and then a bit of what amounts to a nightstand with a notebook that is thick, leather bound. It has, when you would open it, plenty of drawings, text, and other things. But the one that's on top of it, the one that it was left open to, has a really, really important diagram that your character would very much like to make sense of. Why don't you roll investigate one last time?
I too would very much like to make sense of it. Oh. That is a nat 1.
So here, I'm going to describe to you what you see, but I'm not going to tell you what it means. You see one of the pieces of paper that she clearly had on her desk the day before. This is like scrap paper, not bound in her notebook. So instead of it being in her actual notebook, it has been thrown on top of it. Scribbles. There's one equation of a conversion of energy. That's all you know. It has something to do with energy, and then Black Jade being called out as an important resource. The phrase Umbral corruption written underneath it. And then you see a couple of observations about the way that Black Jade decays differently than other gemstones, in that it is the only one that at this point is proven to possibly have a reverse decay effect. And there are many other observations there. I'm going to allow you to take that note with you, so you might be able to make more sense of it later, but it completely befuddles you. And I think one of your takeaways is that... Actually, I'll pause there. Whatever this thing was, whatever she discovered about the Black Jade Lords, she is not to be found. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of hand waving. You would go to the authorities, report that she is missing. You try to find her in the university. Actually, I don't even want to narrate that much for you. You wouldn't find her by yourself.
Right. And I don't think that I would go to the authorities immediately either. The first thing that I would do is find like the most important looking research that is in this secret lab, and I would put it in my bag.
Yeah, you now have Audio's personal private notebook of research, a thick bound leather notebook, and this slip of paper that was thrown on top of it.
Right. So I would, once I have that secured, so I have anything that looks not important, but like could give any edge to a different lab, because I'm still operating under the assumption that this is another lab has managed to get the scoop on us, but literally this time...
You're pretty confident that there's nothing else here that anyone else would not have known about up until this point. Right. So let's say you can strip this private nook, But everything else, other than what she was actively working on, is like pre-published works.
Okay. Then I would go back to the door, fix the lock.
Yep, which you do.
Take a lap around the lab. Probably nobody's there this early in the morning.
Correct.
But if they were, I would say, hey.
You see one guy, well, actually, everything's random in my world. Yeah, there's not many. There's like one guy that's like leaning on a column nearby, and he's drinking like a cup of meat sauce right now.
Just say, hey, there may have been a break-in. If you have any sensitive research, lock it up.
Does he have to make a Constitution saving throw?
Sure. Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? He's doing all right. He's okay. He
It's actually blended brain, and that's why it's so good.
he takes his cup of meat sauce and he looks at you and goes, okay. He's not even super startled. He almost seems like this is just kind of how things go, and so he rushes back to his own lab, not related to yours.
Yeah, and so I, as a student of the Lunar Conservatory, is this something that I would have ever experienced or ever heard through the grapevine of something like this happening? This seems a little bit beyond the pale, at least.
Yeah, roll an easy history check for me.
Sure. There we are. 14.
14. So you... Sometimes professors go away for unexplained reasons and then come back later. But generally it's accompanied by some formal statement by Truthkeeper Prionis or the Council of Scholars that they're being whisked away to do something of like real importance. That their reason for being gone is not because they're in danger, but because they're needed for something that only they have, the rights to be able to further their research in. There's usually a little bit of fanfare, and the conservatory, gives them effectively like going away party for some indiscriminate amount of time, and then they leave, and there's never a promise as to when they'll return. What you're seeing right now is quite unusual given those circumstances. You would have expected some statement if indeed it was the Library of Evolution that was recruiting her immediately.
Right, okay. And then I would go looking for her, see...
Yep. And I will tell you that you can spend all day and you will not be able to find her.
Yeah. And at that point, I would go talk to the ombudsperson, say, there's been a break-in in the lab, has to have been somebody with enough magic skill to manage to get there, and then I would probably make myself scarce, because I'm probably the next person.
Okay. Well, there aren't many options for you. I think one thing that you're trying to process is that the thing that she was working on, this breakthrough you were in person to observe, runs the risk of breaking open the entire narrative around the way that gemstones work, both geologically and in terms of the energy that they keep inside of them. And it might draw a lot of attention to the Black Jade Lord specifically. That may or may not be the reason why she's disappeared, but at minimum, you would want to acquire more samples of increasingly sized Black Jade in order to be able to carry on the research that she has. Her research ties into yours very closely. You might be able to discover the cause of magic and carry on whatever legacy she worked so hard to build up through the talk that originally inspired you to work under her and all of your studies up until this point. Unfortunately, you don't have individually the resources to continue working on this. The Lunar Conservatory at this point would never, take an application for you to go and do field research. And that's before the break-in. It's possible that with bad press around Audia's disappearance, it would be even more dangerous for you to make a formal request. You need to go to someone that you trust. Someone that you've studied with in the past or that has access to resources from any Sapphire Scholar Conservatory that you might be able to work with. So, if you're going to make yourself scarce, where do you go next?
I think I would just leave the Lunar Conservatory entirely.
Okay.
Put what belongings I have in
Yep.
a notebook into a bag, and then maybe go to the Celestial Conservatory and talk to my friend Gaius. See if he could get me some research funding.
So, you did study with Gaius. You both actually were undergrads at the Lunar Conservatory, where, along with working on gem weaving and other skills, you learned that he was very passionate about studying as many languages as possible, relating his experience trying to get to interact with different races and people groups to his understanding of the stars. And he went off to take a assistantship position at the conservatory in the Celestial Conservatory, which gave you a bit of distance. But you keep in touch every now and then. He's someone that you can trust almost with your life. So, Tom, you're going to pack your bags and you're going to slip out as quietly as possible with your bag of 1 pound rocks, taking your way all the way to that Celestial Conservatory. And we're going to give you a week and a half to do that. As you hit the road, let's go straight to the Celestial Conservatory ourselves. 2 weeks ago, something very exciting happened. A group of 6 students that 6 months prior had vanished after being cursed with something that was now being called the Curse of Virgo, left the conservatory, chased by Truthkeeper Prionis, and then disappeared in what some locals refer to as an explosion of light near some outcropping of a pond near Starstep. And that was all that we heard of them until around now, as 6 students, disheveled, scarred by the amount of time they spent on the road, by the temporal distillation in their own minds from being in with the Celestials, just walk right back into the Celestial Conservatory and into the open arms of Gaius Canilla, who is so excited to see them. They restored his memories of what happened 6 months prior, and he now recalls why they were cursed and what they were left to do. Headmaster Zagria, nowhere to be found. He taking over the headmaster position, and they would go back to their purple hearth home, observing that many people had thought that they were dead, leaving flowers and other pieces of texture to their own burial sites with these empty graves that now are no longer necessary. And the group of students there, they began to settle into their life as students, no longer needed by Truthkeeper Prionis or actively hunted. Instead, they just wanted to develop their own specific skills. And I think what we're going to do is we are going to go into the conservatory, jump directly over into one of the outer courtyards, and we're going to take a little seat at one of the tables there where one of our players is actively studying some of the text that he has from one of his cross-weaving classes. So, Cypress, why don't you describe a little bit about your character?
Sure. So, Cypress is a wood elf. Your average height, average build, kind of just an average looking guy. He wears kind of like his clothing is mostly like kind of magically made of like leaves and wood and kind of like plant material, and it like kind of looks like that, but also looks like clothing. It's a weird magic thing. Cypress as a person tends to really be like connected with nature, really likes the environment, and dislikes people who mess with nature. He also really tends to oppose anyone who's in sort of a position of authority or power, or thinks they're they're higher than anyone else. Really against that, and those who would use others for their own benefit. And he's the type of person who tends to like think first, ask questions later.
Yeah,
kind of guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are you doing right now? You're taking some classes right now, and we know that the thing that you care the most about is shard fusing. Something that Maraldi showed you so long ago is that with enough power, you can take these seemingly these non-renewable shards that are the result of poor mining practices, and actually bring them together, turning them back into the magical energy that they once possessed. This is a bit of a rewinding on the clock of how the decay of magical energy in these gemstones actually works. It's extremely difficult. And nobody at the Celestial Conservatory can just outright teach it to you, but you are studying under Professor Verkel. She is giving you more insight into gem weaving as a general practice. Yeah. And we're going to say that you're in the courtyard going through your homework, basically. What does that look like? Like, what are you doing right now?
I mean, so a lot of it is just like trying to read through a textbook. I'm not like the most diligent student, but just trying to like get through it. And
let's just have you roll raw intelligence. How's the textbook treating you today?
Let us see.
I'm gonna roll what the textbook is covering right now.
Intelligence was, I think that is a flat 3.
So I rolled weight and weird, and so what you're reading right now in the textbook is the absolute most foundational theories behind gem weaving. This is extremely important for you to understand as a basis for what you were trying to pioneer with shard fusing. And you'll read through the textbook, and it's like, in this chapter, you're going to learn the foundational elements that are responsible for every aspect of gem weaving, from blah, 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 blah. And you are already bored by just the most important aspects of gem weaving. So that's unfortunate, but
It's the worst.
I think you're longing for maybe a little bit of a pick-me-up after all that. You're trying to freshen yourself up after trying to trudge through this.
I read the first page. I need a treat.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Treat yourself? How does Cypress treat himself?
Meat soup.
We go to the cafeteria and find this.
God, I have to do this again.
Find the sweetest, most non-animal based product.
Yeah, those exist. They're definitely like some vegetarian and vegan friendly options at the Celestial Conservatory. Frankly, they put a lot more money in their student resources than the Lunar Conservatory. So I rolled. Okay, Nathan, design a food in 3 seconds. So when you go to the cafeteria there are a few options, but of the vegetarian ones, you said you wanted sweet?
Yeah, like a
focus?
dessert, like a treat.
Oh, okay, like a little treat. Okay, cool. So it's not a very much weight. It's not very good, and it's not very weird. I'm gonna just describe that what you find is like a couple of caramel snaps that are there in a couple of tins. It's like just a candy dish, and there's a sign on it that says "Take 2 at most, please."
I mean, I'm gonna take 2.
Okay.
And eat them right there.
Okay. And then.
I'm gonna walk and go sit.
Okay.
Open the book, look at it, and be like, "That's not gonna work." Grab 2 more and walk out.
So you're going to walk back up and take 2 more?
Yeah, I've already sat. I walked away. I'm a different person.
I'm gonna. So there's someone there that's running the entire counter, which includes both snacks and the actual food that mature adults would actually be eating from right now. And does she even notice what's going on? So when you walk up the second time to take the snacks, she's not even looking in your direction. She seems to be counting the amount they need until they need to re-up one of their hot foods and reset the plates. And she looks at you and she says, "I'm sorry, haven't you already taken?"
Serving.
Hello, hi.
Sorry.
Yeah, we if you want to sit there or just check out what's going on
I'm
here.
just gonna stand for a minute because I'm parked in the street.
Oh yeah. Hi, yeah. This is our room. We are welcoming them to a whole new campaign. We got a map on the board. We've got characters we'll see, and we killed you.
Yeah,
already.
I'm dead.
Just sort of automatically killed Jordan. Why not?
Wow.
Ben got to publish a 40-page thesis on the geology of magic stones.
I didn't. That's the worst part.
It's not being published yet. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the ability to flip through all sorts of people that are here.
I'm gonna give you a hug too.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you for bringing this up.
Absolutely. You bet. You bet.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you genuinely you can chill for as long as you want. If you leave now, I don't care. If you want to chill for a bit, I don't care. But we'll keep going. So there you go. So as soon as you come, you sit down. You've eaten these 2 candies. You're gonna stand up.
I'm gonna open the book.
You're trying to surreptitiously, you just kind of discreetly grab 2 more candies.
Grab 2 more and walk out.
So this woman that's here, she's of middle age. She's got long, stringy, red, thin hair, and that's very curly. And she looks at you and she says, "I'm sorry, haven't you already taken 2 candies before?"
No.
Okay, I guess roll deception. just straight. What are you straight about? No.
I would never.
No.
The most important, your first roll is whether you can steal this candy.
That point.
So you are
these candies before in my life.
This is so weird that you're both vegan, which is a pretty strong principle.
Vegetarian.
Okay, vegetarian. Yeah, you're vegetarian, which is a pretty strong and principled value to take. And then at the same time, you're just so unabashedly unashamed at things like this. You just very no. And her response is, okay. But remember, only 2. Okay.
For sure, yeah.
She's not really paying much attention to you. She's inventorying some other things. And I guess you take 2 more?
Because I'm gonna grab a 3rd. Just gonna one hand grab 3.
Just because.
Just because.
She's trying to. I did say she was looking elsewhere.
She's trying to tell me what to do.
Percent. She doesn't notice.
Not gonna take that.
So you're gonna grab your 3 candies and you're gonna sit down again. I guess.
I'm just gonna walk out.
Oh, you're leaving?
Yeah.
Where do you head to? You can go to the classrooms, the labs, your dorm, a shack.
What time of day is it?
We'll say it's 10 a.m.
Oh, this is morning. I'm probably gonna head to the nearest forest or trees or somewhere nature that you can just kind of sit and.
Yeah. Do you want to go to the Garden of Taurus, or do you want to go out to the forest near your Purple Hearth?
Probably the forest near our home.
Cool. Yeah.
Probably where I go to my brain's kind of blocked, not picking up anything, so I just go to clear my head.
Yeah.
Kind
So
of reset.
you walk out into the forest, and I'm gonna see if anyone else is like there, just to say hi. Okay, cool. So you find a seat. You're nestled in between some trees, and you can hear the effects of nature around you. It is convenient for you that your Purple Heart, this shack that you had to rebuild at the start of the last campaign, is now so adjacent to nature that you can actually hear it from your own window. So you're kind of not too far from that. And as you're sitting there, sitting in the grass and trying to communing with nature, while trying to read something that is kind of the opposite of that, it's like very like left brain theoretical, like boring stuff. Like who in their right mind would be interested in this sort of stuff? You come across someone that you did not expect to see at this point in time. He walks up with a kind of an effervescent, jovial energy that you do recognize because naturally it's Zinni Ephevel. Zinni, this tiefling that you met in Starstep, and was pushing the bounds of research within how to scan and talk to stars. He comes up to you and he sees you sitting there by yourself. He clocks your textbook. And I can't do the Australian accent like Denton, but I am going to try.
Okay.
So he's like, good day. So, oh, look, you're also studying the gem weaving from Professor Ferkel.
Studying's a strong word.
He's gonna roll insight on you. That's a natural 20. And he says, oh, come now. Studying the stars is the most fascinating thing we can do. They're always changing. Here, let me see if I can help you with this. And he sits down next to you.
Give it your best shot.
Because you allow him to kind of like give you like a rundown.
Yeah, you can try.
Yeah, why don't you roll int again with advantage because he's helping you.
It's a 19. Oh, an advantage. 19.
Wow, okay, so Zinni's proving to be a pretty effective tutor for you. He
Yeah.
takes you through the next, let's say, 2 to 3 main pages, which thankfully, as we rolled earlier, are very important to the foundations of gem weaving. And he says, now, you'll notice that one of the things with the energy of the stars, of course, is that they have this cadence to them. They can actually tell you a lot more about gem weaving because there's a relationship between those two things. And then he pauses. I think everyone knows that. There's a kind of a tie between the stars and us here, and I mean that's inclusive of the gemstones, of course. So I need you to roll insight because clearly something's going on with Zinni.
Yeah. This one's done.
And I don't know if I got audio, if I dropped audio.
Justin, you have to get this one good.
I did.
How'd you do?
Nat 20.
Nat 20? Oh, no way! So you're listening to Zinni. His maybe a gift that he has is that
So
he
fun.
is.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you. Your dinner also looks delicious.
Yeah, but that's coming up soon. So, Cypress. Zinni is as excited as always. I think maybe one of his gifts is that he's so curious and he's willing to ask questions and speak his mind. But maybe this is a problem and he's, for the first time in his life, grappling with the fact that he may not be allowed to share with you something about the stars that he knows and you do not. He's torn between sharing with you something that he's so excited to share with Cypress, his friend, and this feeling of duty or responsibility to something else. With a nat 20, I'll even tell you this. The moment that he made the statement comparing the stars to gemstones, he felt like he basically covered his mouth in shock. He realized he was never supposed to say anything with such certainty as to draw a line between those two things. And then he goes, anyways, I think that I probably need to go because it's...
Hold on a second. You know you can, like... I'm not gonna tell anyone anything.
He stutters. I couldn't possibly know what you mean by that.
I just give him that look of like, you do.
You do the knowing.
You do know what I'm talking about. You're easy to read, bud.
Oh, what do you roll persuasion?
That's a 10.
Cool. So he's beginning to kind of trip over his own words, and he says, "This is not exactly like rocket science. I mean, when I made the scanner that I gave to you, it was a signal from a tomb, and the tomb had gemstones in it, and it feels like the stars led you to the gemstones. What was that thing Aegon used to do? We could use the stars to see gemstones. There's clearly a delineation there. There's a relationship there. And I want a roll something. Okay, cool. He says, look, I can't tell you something that I've discovered, but it's so exciting.
I can see.
In time, I might be able to show you something that I've been working on. It's of the absolute most top secret, and I pledged to the library that I wouldn't be able to share this with anyone.
Who cares what the library says?
I care what the library says. They're funding all of my research.
You're not gonna know.
He looks inwardly, reflects on this, and I'll just telegraph to you with your nat 20 insight. He is unwavering. He really cares very deeply to abide by his words to them. So he pauses and he says, I think I can say this. You described to me when we were in Starstep, the night of the battle with the constructs. You described to me that your adoptive mother, Meraldi, taught you how to take shards and actually weave them together, turn them back into gemstones.
Yeah.
That was so important to me. I didn't realize that we have the ability to take these shards, which people thought were useless, and possibly turn them into something that could make power. And that one day when I was forced to kill or end the life of Moira, I couldn't get over myself from that. If I was smarter, then I really would have... How did Meraldi do it? How was she able to stitch these things together when no one else has proven the ability to do that? Well, I met with someone when I was in Starstep. Chantan is he's a furball druidic cartographer who travels the earth and seeks of capturing these ley line essences, trying to document where they're located. And what he told me at the time was that I think I can tell you this much. It's time. When you went into that celestial portal, you experienced time at a factor of 1,000 times what we here in Chrysalis did. And my theory is that gemstones are the same but in reverse. That the only way that you could ever possibly know a gemstone's true intent is to listen to it for such a long time that you can hear frequencies of inordinate magnitude. I think that the solution has to do with something called the timeless body. Do you know anything about that? And I'm going to have you roll, it's going to be history, but with disadvantage, because this is something that I'll spoil this, you were told about this in the Opal Refuge. You don't remember much of your childhood there.
3.
So, you know that important people had something called timeless body. And that's it.
They had it.
Who had it? Do you know someone that had timeless body?
Like maybe Morale. So important people.
Yeah.
It's all fuzzy. It's.
To be honest, that's where I was when Chantan was describing this to me. I didn't think that there was something so important that only those in the Opal Refuge would be able to know about it, but I what he said, and I have no way to prove this, by the way, so take this with a grain of salt, if you will, is that a creature that can live a long enough life sees time differently than the rest of us. And I don't mean elves. I don't mean in the span of 200 to 300 years. I mean bodies that commune with the earth so deeply that they're able to live for thousands and thousands of years. His tail twitches as he scratches behind his ear,
Like
thinking
the
about
trees?
that. Yes. Well, no. I mean, dryads might have that capability. I don't know. But what Chantan explained is that this relationship between time might have to do with why the Celestials have extremely high frequencies and gemstones very, very, very low frequencies. Anyway, that is officially all that I'm allowed to tell you. I cannot tell you anything else that I'm working on, or Truthkeeper Prionis and the Council of Scholars would breach the contract that I drafted with them. But don't worry, if I make breakthroughs and can prove that this research we're doing doesn't harm the Celestials in any way, then it'll become public knowledge. I want to share this with you.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I promise. He holds out a pinky. You shake pinkies. He bounces up and down with a little bit of glee, and he says, look, I really came because I was going to deliver a message to Headmaster Gaius, but if you are able to do it for me, then that would be great. I must, and then something on his, in his satchel begins to ring. It's effectively a cell phone, but in this case, it's actually a small diamond with a buzzing sensation coming out of it. And he picks it up and he goes, I'm so sorry. Just give me 1 second. Hello? Yeah. Yes, now, I was hoping that we could back it up by like an hour. I mean, okay, but if you're the one doing it, then I suppose that's fine. Okay. I will be ready. And then he puts it down, and as that happens, you hear a sound, and a portal appears directly adjacent to him where he stands. This is clearly it's not a planar walking portal, it's one that would take you between one city and another. A dimensional door, but more powerful. And he says, okay, I'm so sorry, I really wish I could tell more. I tell the others that I say hi, and that I love them, and I'm so glad that y'all have made your way back here. Okay, goodbye, good day. And he
had a message?
And he gives it to you.
Okay.
And then he steps through the portal and is gone. He's vanished.
What a weird day so far.
So, so you've just had this encounter with Zinni. You now know something very bizarre about the relationship between gemstones and celestials. Who knows what it means? What else do you do?
Is the message sealed?
Yes, it is.
How?
Why don't you roll Arcana for me?
11?
11. You have +0 to Arcana?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not very smart.
As a druid?
I have like...
Arcana's intelligence.
Yeah, Arcana's intelligence.
Oh, you're totally right. Actually, and that's actually correct, because I can give you with an 11. This letter is not sealed with like a wax seal. There's something else. There's something funky. You don't know what it is.
Wrestle with those demons.
Just
I'm open anyway.
You're gonna try?
I'm gonna try.
Tell me how you do it.
It's just like a letter?
Yeah, it's an envelope with a seal on it that looks like a wax seal, but it seems like it has a different
I'm just gonna
texture to it.
pull at it.
Start pulling at it?
Yeah.
Cool. Go ahead and give me an athletics check.
10.
Cool. So you're pulling really hard on it, and two things come to your mind. One, it's pretty strange that the paper isn't tearing underneath the pressure of you pulling against this thing. And two, wow, what is this? This is weird. You have no idea why it's unable to be opened.
Paper!
You can try something else if you want.
No, I'm just gonna resolve that. I'm gonna make him reveal the message to me. When I
Okay,
give
you
it to
do.
him.
Make a mental note of this. Awesome. So,
I know what this says.
Cypress, I think at this point you begin to, pick up your stuff and sort of wrap up some of your studying for the morning. You've got a
done
class.
with this book.
Yeah, you've got a class coming up, but later in the day you're going to have a block open where you're going to be able to go to the headmaster's office, Gaius, who's temporarily standing in for Headmaster Zagria, and you'll be able to deliver the message then, tell them that Zinni said hi, and then even relay that to some of your friends. Lupin, Aegon, Axios, Eri. They're all here studying. It'd be great for them to know that Zinni is doing apparently something very important at the Library of Evolution. The last time you met him, he was just a kid with a radio on top of a tower. So there's something that must have happened in the 6 months while you were gone, but you don't have much info on that other than what you just heard today. So while you are walking over, we'll kind of step back from Cypress, let him kind of reconcile that, and we'll say that maybe you grab lunch, or maybe like a late breakfast on the way over.
What do I get?
Yeah, or are you looking for something of a particular caliber?
More filling now.
Mystery salad.
Got it. So of average weight, pretty good and not that weird. We're gonna say. I mean, you tell me what's something that you like to eat.
Like a strawberry walnut feta salad.
Yeah, why not? just a straight up a nice salad that they got there. A lot better than the meat sauce that the Lunar
Man, I'm
Conservatory
so glad
serves.
we don't serve meat sauce here.
Yeah, imagine that was the only thing that you
All that money
vegetarian
that
could
they
eat.
spend on salads, they could be spending on microscopes. Monsters.
So, with that, Cypress walking over, we are going to take a pause in our session and we can break for a little bit of din of our own. I hear that downstairs we've got a meat sauce brewing. So, don't go away, everyone. We will be back right after this. Hello, welcome back. So, when we last left off, Zinni stepped by and had quite a lot of interesting things to tell, and possibly intentionally not tell, to Cypress Oak Weaver as he was studying under the trees outside of the Celestial Conservatory. But we're going to stick around along those stomping grounds for just a little bit longer as we take a walk across the quad, but this time to the academic center where the classrooms are based. If you were to go in the building, up one of the flights of stairs, and then turn down the hall, two doors on your left, you would see the classroom to a professor named Professor Katar Grizzlepuff. This gnomish professor is the specialist in the realm of necromancy at the Celestial Conservatory. And he looks like this. With thick rimmed black spectacles and a long white bushy beard and a generally amicable demeanor about him, he is the kind of professor that if you were to ask a basic question, he would go on a very long and extended diatribe about not only the answer to your question, but all of the possible implications it could provide. He really is passionate about the discourse around the field of necromancy and death as a result, and more important than that, has a sensitivity about the subject that you wouldn't often find in professors that so lifelessly, for lack of a better phrase, bring things back to life. So, it is in this classroom with Professor Grizzlepuff that he is sitting in his seat at the front of the classroom behind a stony desk, and someone is there during his office hours, and she has many questions to ask. But before we get to see what those questions are, Ari, why don't you introduce your character?
Yeah, so Ari is a high elf rogue. She is dressed in plain clothes for now. She's got her shoulder pads on and all of that, just to be sure. But mostly just plain clothes, t-shirt, short, pants, that kind of thing. She's mid-height, looks to be about 25, 26 in human appearance. Long blonde hair, usually worn in a braid. Right now it looks pretty disheveled. If you take a look at her eyes, usually piercing golden. They've got bags under them. She looks really tired. She is fiddling with a amulet that she wears. It's a pendant of a sun with an amethyst in the center of it, as she's kind of poring over books on the desk in front of her with kind of a stern, confused, frustrated expression.
Awesome, thank you. So, Professor Grizzlepuff is trying to pry your hands off of the books that you have in front of you, and he says, here, let's go ahead and let's take a quick look at some of the other specimens we have here, because I thought you would enjoy getting some hands-on research in the realm of haunt hosts. So, let's take a look at this. So, if I were to go ahead and take this creature right here, he pulls it forward, and it's a cage that has a squirrel inside of it. You'll notice that if you look at the rest of the wall, there are a lot of small mammals and birds that are there. And there are some other containers on the wall that are dead animals of the same variety. He says, there's something really interesting about haunt hosts. Tell me, how much do you know about haunt hosts? This will just be a history check.
Is that a history check?
Yeah. Your first roll.
First roll, here we go. There's history. There it is. Not bad.
You missed.
Shut up. That's an 8.
8 total?
Rolled a 2.
Okay, got it.
And a +6.
Oh, you're +6. Yeah, not great for the mercantile savant.
Yes.
So
Traditional.
you know that this is a topic that is studied in necromancy and has to do with the dead thing.
I don't know much. I hope that this would help me.
He ruffles his face, and you see the kind of the lengths of his beard tremble as he's shaking his head. He's like, right, yes. So, haunt hosts are when a beloved animal, one that has a really close tie to a humanoid, so a pet probably, experiences a traumatic death that is observed by the pet's owner, or the bond with the pet is severed in a way that is traumatic to the owner. One thing that we've heard in terms of mythology is that if you experience a traumatic death with a pet of yours, that there's a chance that it could resurrect. It could take on a new life, but in a different host's body. Very often of the same species. That was at least what we heard. And he proceeds to explain how one of the things that he's recently taken on, almost called like a quack by some of the others at the Lunar or the Solar Conservatory, is that he might be able to prove that this actually takes place. And now the way he's doing it, just to give you some pause, is that he is not taking animals and traumatically killing them in front of their owners.
Right.
This is the rescue equivalent of that. He's taking animals that have died, he's requested to keep them in his study, and then he is observing them in close proximity to other animals to see if they possess this animal. So he's going to continue to explain. Now the thing that was always so interesting to me with haunt hosts is that if something dies, what does it mean for it to be a traumatic death? Traumatic to the animal? Surely not. Most animals die traumatic deaths. It's just how it goes, really. But the reality is that the trauma has to be experienced by the child, the human or humanoid. It's very strange to me that it almost suggests. Hey, okay, hear me out. This is going to sound a little strange, but it suggests that the trauma itself is the essence that keeps the soul in a state of limbo, allowing it to have the chance to repopulate or possess a new body. It's almost as if you carry the trauma of something that you've lost for long enough or with enough fervor that you can actually indirectly turn that soul back into something else. At the expense of this other living thing, of course.
Is it always something else? It can't ever be the same being that was lost?
Well, to be completely honest, I've only been able to replicate haunt hosts 3 times in my study. It's hard to find dead animals that die traumatic deaths in the presence of the master, who is then willing to give me their corpse. That's a difficult sell. I'm not made of money. But watch. This animal here, this animal was dead. And after this process of the haunt host taking a new form, it recognizes its owner. Just like it did before. It behaves the way that it did before. This is tremendous. If I can replicate this just a few more times, then maybe I can describe to you why it takes place. Or maybe we can think about humanoids being resurrected in this way. Is it even possible? I don't know. But there seems to be a link between the trauma held not by the deceased, but actually someone who witnessed or was a part of that person's relationship.
Does the creature know that it was something else before? Have you been able to speak with this new spirit or old spirit or?
That's a great question. Why don't you? Cool. Why don't you roll religion? And I'm gonna have him roll religion to see if he knows.
13.
13? You have heard that a creed or an ethical best practice within the realms of medicine and necromancy is that if there is ever a state at which a soul in a state of limbo is trying to be returned to a body or given a new body, that it can only enter a body that is willing. The creature has to be willing to let itself be completely possessed. It's almost like you have to invite the vampire in kind of scenario. Otherwise, it's impossible to penetrate without some realm of magic that you would not even think exists. That like to all intents and purposes can't exist because there's no framework for that. But that's really all you know. A soul needs a willing host.
What kind of relationship do I have with this professor?
So, after the event of the Weave of the Ninestone campaign, where you had the Celestial Curse, you returned And it's only been a few weeks since then. You pivoted your studies not from your original studies, but to something closer to necromancy with a few main focuses in mind, but really the goal was to get close to the professors who are willing to give you the truth behind the difference between death and life, and the celestials and those that are in limbo or in the realm of the dead. That is the kind of thing that you're trying to study right now. So you know him fairly well. He is a trustworthy person, even if he has a bit of maybe an absent-minded composure.
Let me ask you something then.
Mm-hmm.
Has this only ever been done with beasts? Pets?
Oh, well. First, has it? Second, does he know? Okay. He goes, okay, well, it's really not the kind of thing that you can propose to the Sapphire Scholars. Hi, it's me, it's Grizzle Puff. I would like to find dead bodies and then sort of just lie them around near other...
Has anyone done this?
Roll insight for me.
4.
You get the sense that he is not confident one way or the other, but either way, he doesn't really care to tell you if it were something that existed. So he says, this is not really appropriate for me to be discussing with you. I almost fear... Well, let me roll for him. He says, to be honest, I'm beginning to fear for you, Eri. I've been delighted to have your assistance in my lab. I don't get many students who are delighted with the prospect of studying death, but to have you here has really augmented my work. But I've watched you change over the last 2 weeks. You seem to be getting more... I don't see you sleep.
I'm fine.
Okay, fine. If someone were to be researching it, well then, presumably, if it wasn't published at the Sapphire Scholars, they would need a large supply of dead bodies that are in stasis. To me, that sounds like the Black Jade Lodge. But I can't in good faith ever allow you to go there. There's people who go there to die. That's the purpose, is to die a good death or desperately cling to the hope of finding a new one. This is not, a basis for field research.
Understand. Thank you. You've been more than helpful.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's finish what we have and see if this teaches us anything about it. And I didn't script anything, so we're gonna find out. Just why don't you roll luck in front of the table?
Where'd my dice go? Okay.
I stole it. They rolled bad.
6.
6. So you spend the next few hours documenting sort of the traits of both the corpses and the living creatures. And you are pretty confident in your note-taking that nothing has occurred that would be seen as unusual. So if a haunt host were to have happened, then this was not the case for it. You've been sitting there for, say, like an additional 2 hours as the sun is beginning to pass 2 o'clock, getting into the late afternoon. And at that time, somebody actually knocks on the door to Professor Grizzlepuff. Grizzlepuff says, yes, okay, perhaps this could be informative for us. You have a letter for me. And the student there, who's just tasked with going around and delivering letters to the offices, he says, no, sir, actually, I have a letter for Eri, if that would be all right. He says, yeah, we're fine. Nothing's happening here as far as I'm concerned. And so he walks forward, he says, this is for you. There's no return address. And he hands you this letter.
Take it. Is there anything notable about the letter?
Yeah, so you flip over this envelope, and previously we described that Cypress, there was like this weird seal of magic or whatever. This is a normal letter with a wax seal on it. But there are 2 things that I think are going to be immediately relevant to you. But let's make you roll investigate. It's pretty easy to investigate to make sense of it.
15?
Yeah, okay, 15's good, yeah. So the 2 things that you notice on the front are the seal that is there is, you don't recognize it definitively, but it is something from the Amethyst Kingdom. You know for a fact it's not from Krya, because that is a seal that one would have been considered a bit of a regime-doubting slur against your father, Toril. So that seal would not have been allowed to be used because he has his own seal that he uses now. But this is of a different city. You got 15?
15.
You don't know. You don't know which city, but it's definitely Amethyst Kingdom. The second thing that you see is inscribed a postscript, a PS on the back of the letter. And with 15, I will give you this. You can immediately catch that this is two things about it. First is this is a thieves' cant, just like what we described for what Tom went through, is a traditional thieves' cant that only members of a particular thieves' guild would use. But the second thing you notice about it is so poorly inscribed. It is as if a child was just like holding a pencil with a fist and writing something across the back of it. So there's very poor legibility to it. With a 15, that's enough to make sense of the letter. The text of the letter talks about a docking point at the noon on the third day, and that as a result, a new supply runner is going to take step. Here's the coordinates of it. Your thieves' cant tells you, as you cut through the noise there, that what it really says is something like, open soon, quiet, and then a word that, in context with the 15, I can't give you too much more about it. It simply reads, gift, something like that. And that's it. You have you haven't opened it yet. This is the outside of the letter.
I'll take it. I'm gonna put it in my bag.
Okay.
I have a meeting to get to. Was there anything else that we needed to go over before I leave?
No. If you would be so kind, we need to put up a new posting for additional specimens to collect for this. Could you please, take this and put it on the post board in the courtyard?
Of course.
Okay, great.
Take it. I'm going to leave.
Dead pets.
Right.
The letter reads, have your pets died of traumatic death? We will pay in cash for pets right here.
Right. I'm gonna go to the Purple Hearth.
Okay.
To our.
Let's see if anyone is at home right now. I get to roll a d20 for all of our other players.
Just goes around to all the missing signs in the neighborhood and attaches it to the bar.
So the only person that is even nearby that you definitely know is you notice that Cypress is off in sort of the central courtyard area. He seems to be trying to bang his head against a textbook and doesn't seem to be enjoying it very much. At one point, you might catch out of the corner of your eye that he's standing up to go and grab some candies off of a counter.
Sounds about right. So, okay, I'm just gonna go to our house and open the letter there.
Okay, so you're inside. You're actually alone at this point. You'll remember the Purple Hearth was this wooden shack with giant holes that you then boarded up by just punching boulders into it. And then you were able to replace the beds and put a little bit of a kitchenette in the base, which is really just like a fireplace and a pot and then like a cutting surface. And other than that, it's a pretty simple wooden cabin. You go into the interior and you're gonna open up the letter. Yes? Okay. On the inside, you're going to read a message. And you don't even need to roll this. You would recognize this as being the handwriting of Kita. Kita was a servant in your own house's quarters up until the part of Toril's regime in Krya, which, as a reminder, Toril believed that he was going to be the savior of the people of Krya. He was this mercantile savant. In a coup, he overthrew the city guard, and then as part of that, there was a revolution. The poor people who were deeply disliked his oppressive classist, classist oppression, were led by someone named Sora. Sora was a half-orc leader of what's called the Emerald Insurgents. And then when this all went down, there was a conflict. Unfortunately, the Emerald Insurgents, including yourself, was routed, and to make a show of what happened there, Toril commanded your brother Endor to execute each of the members of the Emerald Insurgents on the steps of Krya, chopping off their heads one by one, saving Sora for last and making you watch the whole thing. Kita, being a small girl who was not technically part of the insurgents, was just whisked away and imprisoned for some time. And that's the last that you knew of her. You came to the conservatory to grow more power so you could eventually save them. But This letter seems to be written in her hand, and the seal not from Krya. So what's really happening? Here's what the letter reads.
Dear Ari, remember when you taught me how to pick locks? Well, I finally found a chance, and I was able to get away.
There are 2 exclamation marks there, and then you see a little doodle of like a girl, like a stick figure girl that's like in a running motion.
I found a very nice family in Carapace.
Which is spelled Carapace.
Spell it again, sorry.
Yeah, Carapace. It is you know where the city is. It's about 2 days' journey south of Krya.
I found a nice family in Carapace that is taking care of me. When I escaped, I heard Toril say something. He said that the reason we needed to kill everyone and remove their bodies was so that they could not be brought back to life again. So I thought I would do the best I could, and I found this for you. Please see inside.
And then you'll notice that there's a drawing of an arrow pointed downward into the base of the envelope, and the rest says,
I miss you so much. I hope you're safe. I love you.
Kita.
Ari's crying. Ari's absolutely crying. This is a girl who she has regretted the moment that she left every single day since leaving, not knowing what happened to her. So to know that she is safe and cared for means everything to her. What did arrow point to what?
So you reach into the base of this envelope, and there's definitely a bulge that indicates it's of relative thickness. And when you pull it out, this is what you find. It's a very ornate metal locket that has these clockwork interchanging fixtures that allow it to be sealed. But it's not a lock with a particular combination. You just unclasp it and open it up, and inside of it you find a lock of Sora's red hair. At the base of the envelope is the remainder of her note. She took the time to write inside the envelope for this, and says,
I heard that you might be able to bring someone back to life, and please save Sora. Please bring her back.
And then she signs off, and you have this letter, this locket, in your hand. And I'll tell you a little bit of what you've learned with Crizzlepuff as these 2 weeks have passed. Most people that have been on a couple of adventures, we can roughly approximate level 2, 3, 4, are aware of the fact that if someone dies, you can revivify them if they're in a stasis. That's why there are spells where people practice the habit of being able to steady a body from its immediate sense of decay. Mm-hmm. There's a problem with Kita's proposal here, which is that Sora did not just die and was put into stasis. She was decapitated, and there is no way to use a level 3 revivify spell, a Black Jade of relatively 8 inches of diameter, in order to revive a body that, one, died about 8 to 9 months ago, and 2, definitely is not in one piece. And so, unfortunately, it feels like Kita is maybe grasping at straws. But there's something that you remembered hearing from Grizzlepuff that is interesting to you. Apparently there are ways for people or souls to be revived that aren't necessarily tied to revivify, not necessarily in the same body. I mean, if anything, the Haunt Host is a weird but potential breakthrough in the realm of possession of new creatures, albeit willing ones. And you think that if there was powerful enough Black Jade, it could do more than just revivify a body. It might be able to take any part of someone, like this lock of hair you now have in your hand, and do a true resurrection. There are downsides to this, which your character doesn't know too much about, and that Grizzlepuff could fill you in a little bit on, but this is the first chance that you've ever had with a hope that someone like Sora could eventually return to you. And maybe more. Maybe lead the insurgents. Maybe be able to help reunite the people of Krya. You hold this locket with a chain. and it has Sora's hair as a slight piece inside of it.
I'm going to take the paper that the letter is on and tear the part where Kita signs her name. And I'm going to put that into the locket with the hair and put it on. What time is it?
About 4 p.m.
Okay, I'm going to grab every book that I have on necromancy at
Just in the Purple Heart?
Yeah.
Cool. You're a little new to this and you don't have too much at your disposal.
Great,
but
I'm going to
maybe
grab
go for
everything
it.
anyway.
Okay.
Put it in my bag, and then I'm going to go back to Professor Grizzlepuff.
Mhm.
Grizzlepuff?
Yep, Grizzlepuff.
Grizzlepuff.
No mission names.
And I'm going to go back to his office. I'm hoping he's still there.
Yep. So he is still there. He's still writing in his office as he's trying to wrap up the day. He's got about another 30 to 40 minutes left before he goes home. And he is... Don't want to spoil nothing. There he is. So he sees... Oh, hello. Did you leave something, Eric?
One quick question. Something that I read reminded me that I meant to ask you about true resurrection.
He's going to roll insight. And he goes... Right. Well, I mean, True Resurrection is a very powerful necromancy spell. There are probably a couple dozen people that are capable of it. It's, unfortunately, really only reserved to those who use it for malicious means. The Black Jade Lord's chief among them. What's this all about? What are you getting at?
The haunt host that you mentioned made me think, instead of having those souls go to a different host, if maybe we could return those pets to their owners in their original bodies, it might make them, I don't know, their owners a little more fond of the pet. I don't know.
I appreciate your heart. You seem to have a sensitivity towards these people who have lost their pets, but I really want you to picture this with me for a second. Imagine that you're 7 years old and you've got a dog that you love, and it dies a gruesome or horrible death. No child should have to go through that. But now, imagine that with the power of magic, you get to bring it back in this painful, disfigured state. I can't even be certain that's what the dog would want. And certainly for the child to have to go through that trauma again is not worth the trade-off. Certainly. That's why we try to find better hosts for these creatures. Plus, think about what that would do to the child's perception of death and life. Some things die and some things don't, and some things can come back. I almost wonder that it would give them a perverted idea of risk, of safety, of reality. We can't just be doing this for children.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. So you didn't leave anything here?
I was actually wondering if you had a book on the haunt host, just so I could further studies about that.
Well, if there was a book on the haunt house, it would be documented by yours truly. Let me just roll, see how he's feeling. He says, I hate to do this, but I really have to keep my personal notebook of these files. It's really all I've got, and I haven't exactly made backups yet.
Yeah, understandable.
But,
thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow then, yes? Same time?
Yeah, same time.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back to the Purple Earth. I'm gonna wait until nighttime.
So while you are there, I imagine you're like reading the letter again, or you're like going through the few books that you do have, just researching basically just scraps of notes that you have with Professor Grizzlepuff, and there's it's getting late.
Mm-hmm.
It is getting very late. You are struggling to sleep. There are memories flashing in your head of what happened at Krya, your view of these friends of yours, dear friends, being slaughtered, this view of the misery that Kita must have gone through as being imprisoned at such a young age, and the fact that she was able to escape herself must mean that she's grown quite a lot since then. And there's a knock at the door. and you hear Aegon's voice.
Hey, this place taken?
No, come in.
He steps inside, shuts the door behind him. He reaches behind his neck and he's sort of scratching it. He seems a little awkward, a little out of place, and he's like,
Look, I'm not trying to, well, yeah, you know what? Yes, I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but I was talking to the others earlier, Lupin and Axios, and we're really worried about you. You keep staying late at Professor Grizzlepuff's office. You stay up reading through these scraps of text, and you don't come to our other classes.
I have to go.
Well, he's sort of startles in place. Oh, and actually, I had Logan already roll this. His insight. He startles in place and he says,
Well, I don't understand. What's the point of all this? What do you mean you've got to go?
I have to leave the Sapphire Scholars.
All right, hold on. Just pause for a second. What do you mean? Where do you plan to go?
I can't tell you. Because you'll try to follow me, and I can't have you following me.
Well, of course I'm going to follow you.
No, not this time.
Eri,
I have a real chance to get back what I lost in Kraya.
I don't think you fully understand what I mean here. It's not... I can't... I don't want to leave you, Eri.
Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do. And I can't have you running into battle trying to sacrifice yourself again. You have to stay here, and I'm going. And you're not going to be able to stop me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like I'm gonna let that happen.
You can try.
Eri, I didn't mean for it to be like this. I wanted to tell you under different circumstances, but you can't leave. Over the last few weeks, I finally got a sense of realism. I finally was grounded here, and it was because of you. I don't want to give myself to the stars. I want to give myself to you, Eri. I love you, Eri. Please, let me in. What is happening?
Not this time. When I come back, if I come back, maybe then. But I don't get a happy ending in this. It's not going to be you and I going off to the sunset and having a life together. This is what I have to do for my people. And it's not a sacrifice I'm willing to let you make on my behalf. Goodbye.
he's genuinely at a loss for words. He's angry and sad, and he feels confused all at the same time. He stands there, he tenses his muscles, he opens his mouth, and then he can't speak. And then he tries again, and he fails. And then he just takes one of his large Goliath hands, and he smashes the side of the wall of the purple hearth.
Harry doesn't flinch. She just walks past him and leaves as she takes everything that she has and she goes into the woods towards the wall that we ran to.
He turns only after you've passed him. At first thinking that maybe somehow standing there with his broad shoulders would prevent you from actually exiting the door, but instead you just walk deftly past him. And only after you're out of sight does he turn over his shoulder and he looks after you. And I'm gonna roll one last thing for him. He can't muster enough strength or courage to say anything else. He lets you disappear into the night.
So my plan is to wait until the dead of night and what do I know about the security of the office buildings that the professors would have their offices?
You know.
So this is no lunar conservatory,
Right.
but the offices of the professors, not the classrooms, like where you were doing your work with Grizzlepuff, but the offices, they have some relatively good security. We'll say they have some sentries that are there, not standing robots, imagine like floating orbs that kind of track progress of people in the area, and then some locks, some physical locks, some arcane locks, it depends on which room.
Okay. She's trying to decide if it's worth whatever might be in Grizzlepuff's journal, if that might be any help to her, but at this point, I don't think she would think he has enough solid information for it to be worth alerting anyone that she might be going. At one point, Nova had left her daggers at the hearth. Are they still there?
They are still there.
I want to take those, and I want to walk the maze, the gardens of Taurus. Is that right?
Yeah.
Walk those one more time before I go.
Are you trying to do the Zen walk and like commune with it? Or is it just more of like an activity to pass the time?
I'm not really sure what I'm hoping to get out of it.
Fair enough. I can read some stuff for you. So you walk through the garden and you look at the stars, remembering the time when you as a group previously used this to open up this wonderful underground cavern that ended up being this curse that put you through a tumultuous time. And I think this is the first time you're beginning to appreciate it for the beauty that it really has. It's simple. It's simple but very symmetrical. It's got a geometric satisfaction to it. And someone who continues to caretake for this garden, they must care quite a lot about it. It's in excellent condition. And you wonder the kind of life that you could have been living if really all you needed to do was keep a couple of living things alive and in good condition, shrubs, plants, wildlife. Instead, you're trying to do something that very few people have ever successfully done, and very few with good intentions, which is to bring a dead thing back into life.
Yeah.
The sight of all of this lush wildlife begins to make you feel sick.
Yeah. Okay. How far are we from... Well... I want to find Cypress. Do I know he was in the courtyard. Did I happen to have eyes on anything that he did?
So, the only thing...
Other than bang his head into a book.
Legend has it, if you kick a tree, he will appear.
I think one thing that comes to Aries' mind is that of everyone that you journeyed with previously, the only person who really knew Sora the way that you did is Cypress. He was one of the Umbral insurgents. He was not present at the time of the execution of Cryo because he was in the Opal Refuge, but maybe he could sympathize with this mission that you're going on, or maybe give you insight into what he learned in the Opal Refuge because it's so close to the Black Jade Lords.
Yeah.
I'll say that given enough time, you could eventually find him.
Okay, I'm gonna find him.
Where are you, Cypress?
Well, so probably after those classes, I went and brought the note
Yeah.
to Headmaster.
Yeah. So I will say, Cypress, you are currently in the headmaster's office, which is Gaius. Gaius is the temp headmaster. He's currently working on some stuff at his desk, and we're gonna skip forward past him reading it. So he actually opens it in front of you. I'll show you a little bit of what happens. He reads the message from Zenetis, and this is the expression that he has. So he opens it. He's like, "Oh, Zenny gave you this letter to send to me. Is that right?"
Yeah, he said you could share it with me.
Why don't you roll deception for me?
Dirty 20.
He goes, it's pretty good. He goes, well,
Me and Zane go way back. We're real close.
I would be very surprised if that were the case. The seal here is one from the Library of Evolution direct, and there's very strict rules that only those to whom it is addressed are allowed to open it. That's the only reason I would say.
That's why you opened it, but you could share the contents with me.
I don't want to doubt you, friends. If you may, maybe I could do a bit of examination on your truthfulness.
and he holds a green stone in front of you.
Okay.
He says,
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Well, then you must be telling the truth.
he holds out and he casts a zone of truth on you, and he's going to ask,
Did Zinni, yes or no, tell you that you allowed to hear the contents of this letter?
How do I twist this?
You seem to be stuttering there for a second.
Say
You're supposed to answer the
He
question
didn't say those
relatively
words.
quickly.
He used other words. I don't remember what.
that's funny. He didn't use those words.
Okay. Yes or no, do you believe that Zinni intended for you to hear the contents of this letter?
Yes. He handed it to me.
He's going. I have to call you out on that one. There's no way that's the truth. There's no way your character actually believed he wanted you to see it. So when you attempt to lie, you choke on your words. It's the
Wait.
yeah.
Zinni wanted to tell him, but he,
That's true.
But he
That's-
wasn't.
But-
But he felt like he wasn't allowed to.
You could say that, yeah.
So could he
I
say?
can believe that Zinni wanted me to see the contents of that letter.
I think. Well, unless Guys rolls very poorly on insight, he's gonna see through your little word gymnastics. He's gonna say,
I am very fond of you, but I asked for a yes or no answer, and you gave me something I can't put much faith in. I'm so sorry. But I can read this with you still in here. Don't worry. Why don't you have a seat until I'm finished?
"Do you do that?"
I just kind of go step over there. I don't sit.
Fine, fair. Cypress just standing in the room. So he pulls out. You've seen these spells before, but it's a red stone and a white stone, a diamond, and he holds them both together. And in conjunction, he puts a. The only way I can describe this is like a tech privacy screen. So it's a polarization effect that makes it impossible for anyone else to read it but him. And then he transcribes what you see there into his own personal notes. But in doing so, he's actually removing it from the letter, so there's nothing left on it. And he reads it as these runes are passing before his eyes, and he goes, "Oh, oh." Sorry. Wow, this is quite astounding.
And you don't get to know it.
Okay, well, and he folds it and he puts the stones up and he just kind of like drops the paper on the desk because there's literally nothing on it anymore.
He says, it seems as though Zinni has taken on a prestigious research position at the Library of Evolution. That is astounding. I don't know if anyone that young has been able to do that before. He must have discovered something absolutely tremendous. But he told me that he wasn't able to disclose much of what it was at all. That it related to the radio that he'd been working on for most of his life, but that's really it. I'm sorry. I don't know if you expected anything more from this, but thank you for delivering this to me. At around this time, we're going to have Tom arrive at the headmaster's office. So Tom, you walk in with your bag of stones and maybe your mug of meat sauce that you've since finished, since that was technically a week and a half ago.
What's in that?
Meat sauce.
Cypress
All right.
retches.
You want some?
No, I do not.
Oh, Tom, hello!
guys.
Good to see you!
He awkwardly stands off in such a way that suggests he might hug you, but then is afraid of how you would see him.
I kind of take half a step in to really ambiguous.
And then he takes half a step in, but then he sees you stop, so then he stops.
Perfect.
And he says,
Oh, yes. Hello. You didn't write. I wasn't expecting you here. What brings you to the Celestial Conservatory? I need to get the other faculty. They're going to be happy to see you.
and he begins to take a step outwards so we can collect some of the other faculty.
I'm here kind of in a hurry, and on private business, so if you don't mind waiting outside. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it really is urgent.
Do I know if this room has like eavesdropping protection?
You are confident it does not.
I'm gonna go right outside.
Okay.
Basically ear to the wall.
There are windows.
Is it like full floor to ceiling windows?
Yeah.
How do they have floor to ceiling windows?
Because of magic. Alright, well, you figured that out.
Is the door a floor-to-ceiling window?
It's got, windows you would expect from, traditional modern offices. Anyway, so he sits at his desk and he gestures for you to sit in front of him. Have a seat, have a seat!
So Gaius, I have heard that you've come into an incredible position and temporarily or currently have access to just sweeping unilateral decisions about funding of research, and
I wouldn't exactly
and it
describe it.
happens that I have a great research project that I'm working on that I think would fall more under the purview of the Celestial Conservatory because it regards life and death, and I'm thinking about making a trip to the Black Jade Lords, but I would need a way to make it there.
So, his face, which is very visibly, it's very pronounced, goes through 4 emotions just immediately as a result of your discussion. It originally goes from immense curiosity, and then a little bit of shame and embarrassment, and then abject terror when you mentioned the Black Jade Lords, and then absolute confusion at the end of all of that. And he's trying to wrap it all up in his head. He's like, so, okay, let me just first of all, I might have the headmaster's desk, but I do not have the power of one of the Council of Scholars. That's actually specifically why I was allowed to take this position, is because I haven't finished my graduate studies like you have. Number 2.
Somebody has to approve the grants, and I bet you it's not people on the Council of Scholars doing research funding.
Let me roll his something that I can't tell you. He goes, yes, this is true. You don't need to roll insight. He is poorly hiding the fact that he technically still does all of the grants here for the time being. He then says, number 2. What is this about the Black Jade Lords? Why are you going to the Black Jade Lords? Did the headmaster at the Luna Conservatory approve this?
Within the rules of D&D, I don't know of any specific anti-eavesdropping spells, but within the world, I would expect that people within... No, you know what? I'm going to cast Prestidigitation to make the equivalent of a waterfall sound happening at the door of the room.
You just activate a white noise effect right here. So you just drop this noise right next to you.
Exactly.
And within that, you are now in a much more sonically secluded conversation. Cypress, you're on the outside, and then you suddenly just hear this giant waterfall noise activate.
Cypress takes 1d4 sonic damage.
Now knowing that something juicy is happening, I'm gonna stick around to see when he leaves. And maybe chat when he leaves.
You two can clearly see that he's standing.
I'm gonna go away so I'm not in view of them anymore. But I'll be so I'm able to see the door when he leaves.
Because we've literally had an entire combat in the hall outside of Headmaster Zary's office, I can confidently tell you it's just a straight shot. You would be in view until you're at least 100 feet away when you can turn a corner. You can duck into another classroom, but that's not going to make you very close. Or another office.
I just want to be able to like intercept him when he goes to leave.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah. Yeah, you can just go towards the lobby.
Yeah,
basically.
that's what that.
Okay, okay, yeah, got it. Okay, so waterfall noise. You're talking to him.
So I lean in.
He leans in very close. He's shorter than you, so he leans up on his desk and holds himself in place like he's trying to get up to your level here.
Now I shake his hand. Good to see you. So, Adja's gone. She's gone. She made some sort of breakthrough, and she's disappeared. I don't know exactly what that means. I've heard something similar happened to Zagria, but I don't know the details on it. And it's time for me to not be in the Lunar Conservatory, and probably not be in the Sapphire Scholars in general.
Professor Weaver has disappeared?
She has.
And no note from Toothkeeper, Prionis? Nothing? No
Nothing.
mission? No top secret?
Not at all. A hole in the door, a hole in the window.
Oh no. When Master Zagria left, she was commissioned. It was we made a cake and we sent her off, and the Toothkeeper Prionis said that she was going to be doing some very, very substantial work. This is terrible. I hope she's safe.
He starts fiddling with his hands, like he's trying to look away from you and possibly think about something other than what you've just shared with him.
Well, you can't... I still don't understand. Why do you need to go to the Black Jade Lords in order to save her? Is she... Do you think they took her to the Black Jade Lords?
I have no idea. I know... How would I phrase that even to Gaius? I have a lead. And I think I'll understand more about the situation if I can get there. But I have to be able to get there. And frankly, they spend all the money in the Sapphire Conservatory on microscopes and meat sauce, not on travel budgets.
He pauses. I need you to make a really difficult persuasion check.
How charismatic are you?
By financing this operation, he would, in a way, both be breaking protocol and possibly enabling you to die. And this is not something that he's very keen on doing.
As it turns out, I'm still a charisma build until tomorrow.
That's true.
That's a 21.
He looks at you and he says,
I see that look in your eyes from when we were in undergrad. You know something. You've seen something. Something really important. Something that might shape our world. I don't know why you don't want to tell me what that is. But if you trust me enough to come here and tell me about Adia Weaver's disappearance, then this must be serious.
Adia's gone, and I'm going as far away as physically possible. If anybody asks, I wasn't here.
he leans back. He's no longer on the desk, but he sits in his chair, and he takes a big breath, like he's trying to get like this load off of his chest. And then he pivots his chair and he looks, and on the wall inside of her office is a map of the known areas of Chrysalis. So canonically, the map you see in front of you, the world map, is what the Sapphire Scholars know of the world, what has been documented and popularly shared here. And he starts tracing his finger from the Sapphire Scholars down southeast into the Amethyst Kingdom, the Emerald Egalitary, Opal Refuge, and then his finger begins to tremble the closer it gets to the Black Jade Lords. And then he taps. At the northern tip of the Black Jade Lords, there's a town there that's labeled on the map called Death's Draught. D-R-A-U-G-H-T. Like a beer. And he says, if you go, could you at least do me the honor of meeting up with the people here? There are mercenaries, tradesmen, clerics, people who might give you safer passage. And then he looks back up at you, and there's a lot more urgency in his eyes, and he gets really close to you. standing to where his head is roughly down to your belly button. And he says,
Do not go in lightly. From what I've read from Professor Grizzlepuff, the souls of those that are there hunger for those with the least will to live, because those are the easiest bodies to take. So whatever you're doing, you better be certain that this is what your life is meant to do. Or they'll take it for you and use it for something else. He leans back in his chair.
do you say anything at this point? He opens his desk. He takes a letterhead from the conservatory and he starts writing on it. He says, I can really only get you as far as the Emerald Egalitary. I don't have many resources to just unilaterally condone a research project from a non-faculty here. But if it does come down to it, I might be able to send more research resources afterward. And that's where I'm going to send it. He taps back on the map. But you have to send me a message in order to request it. You know that there are ways in the universe to send effectively an email magically. He folds it up, and with that, he unlocks basically a small vault of reserves that allows him to give you enough money to meaningfully hire for passage and for ferry access to that part of the Emerald Egalitary. And he says,
I really want you to succeed in this, but I would rather you return in one piece, please. Sometimes I feel alone here. And I want to see those great things that I know you're working on. Anyway, I'll pretend like you were never here. Goodbye.
and he turns in a more dejected stance. He's not looking you in the eye.
Gaius,
He turns back.
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
And then I turn and leave.
Your
Tear down the prestidigitation.
yeah, your prestidigitation you remove and you leave the room, and you would not hear this. But after you've left, he sits turned perpendicular to his desk, or parallel with his desk, as he's thinking, looking at the map. And out loud, audibly, he says to himself,
Did I just send one of my best friends to die?
and that's where we're going to leave him. So, in the hallway, Cypress, you notice that Tom is leaving. But there's something else that catches your eye. While Tom is going to pass by you, you see out the window and towards the eastern forest clearing of the conservatory, back where you originally escaped after you were attacked by Malkatin and his forces, you see a small, hooded elven figure walking in the direction of the faculty labs and classrooms.
Is it a small hooded elven figure that I recognize?
Why do you roll percent?
How good is your skulking, Ari?
Pretty good.
Yeah, why don't you roll stealth for this?
You've never seen this hooded elf before in your life.
24.
15.
So, I have to hand wave and say, at some point, the three of you need to connect up.
Yep.
I think, well, the way I was trying to time this out was that Gaius formally makes the introduction between you three because he knows what you're doing.
So I was
but we got
actually
it flipped.
hoping to find Cypress at Gaius's.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I would be, I guess, if I knew that's the direction he was going, that's where I would head.
Maybe she finds me as I'm hiding, waiting for.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, cool. So you near the faculty's offices, you notice that Cypress is waiting in the lobby, seemingly looking down anxiously at the office of now headmaster Gaius Ganella.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna come up behind him and tap him on his shoulder.
Hi.
Hey.
Look, you've seen a ghost.
Well, I need your help.
Sure.
We have a real chance to save Krya.
Oh.
I've been studying, and a friend of ours came through.
Okay.
And if we're gonna do this, we have to go now.
Go where?
I think I have to go to the Black Jade Lords. And I don't know what I'm expecting there, and I would really like to have a friendly face with me. I can't ask you to go, because you might be going to your death. But it would be nice.
I would have to miss class.
It's like the first time Ari laughs in a week.
Hard sell, but I mean, I guess. Yeah, I come with you.
Cypress, you do get one memory that I wasn't able to identify earlier that is helpful for you. You have been hearing in the news, every now and then there are papers that are released to the conservatory, that for the first time ever, the zombie hordes at the northern tip of the Black Jade Lords are beginning to move outside of the bounds of the agreement between King Grimthorn and the Ruby Empire. Their influence is expanding. And it represents something that hasn't been seen in several hundred years, which is this idea of this corruption, this necrotic energy of death, and which lays waste to agriculture, which kills the ability for wildlife to grow, is spreading outward. And you know the very next geographic target. It's the Opal Refuge. You don't know if the Opal Refuge can properly defend against it. It's isolated on an island. It's got illusory magic, but can it defend against the necrotic forces of this Umbral corruption? You don't know that for sure.
Well, it just so happens that I would be rather interested in coming. There are some things I'd like to check out. I've heard tell of
Very nice this time of year.
You realize we're probably going to our deaths, yeah?
but if we don't go, the trees are going to their death. And I can't have that.
Right.
Opal Refuge is right next to it. And I can't have whatever is there spreading further. It's already spread enough.
Okay.
So I'm in. I'm with you.
And around this time,
Let's go to the Black Jade Lords.
Yeah.
You
I
say
imagine I'm walking by around this time.
Right.
Students, don't go to the Black Jade Lords. It's dangerous.
Oh,
You will
where
most
are you
certainly
headed,
die.
sir?
The Black Jade Lords.
but yeah, no. Tom walks up at this time. You were planning on catching him, so you were kind of just like in the lobby, and Ari didn't care. She just told you point blank what she was doing.
Yep.
Tom walks up at this time.
You know, I think I would say that. Like,
Oh, great.
you should not be going there.
Who are you?
A professor?
And I listen to. I've never seen you before, ever.
You don't go to my school. I'm just
Okay,
as
care what you say.
as general life advice, kid who I just saw in Zach.
This is why I should have stuck to my script. I'm going to just do this thing and say that Gaius is going to leave his office for long enough to walk you down the hallway, happen across you two, and make the introduction. He knows of what happened to Sora because you've talked about it at times. He just reads in your face that this is extremely important to you and that he can't dissuade you from going. And then he thinks of it as a win-win. He says, "Oh, well, it turns out that Tom is also going to the Black Jade Lords. He really does want desperately to solve a problem with death
were
and
telling
to
us not to
discover."
go.
Yeah.
Tom,
Youngins.
if I could advocate for anyone, I trust these two with my life. They've done much more for this conservatory than many others have, and they're not too bad in a scrap either.
So, when you told me to go looking around for mercenaries or caravans, what you meant was I should find
Exactly.
some freshmen.
These two freshmen who disappeared for 6 months, came back, studied for 2 more weeks of classes, and then definitely are ready to go on another life-changing adventure. Exactly. This was the point.
Well, Gaius, you've done a lot for me today, and I will return the favor. I will babysit them for you.
And he looks at you two and says, and he looks at you two and he says, and Cypress, Ari, Tom is a master sorcerer with knowledge of the way that gemstones work,
I think that you two could learn quite a lot from each other. I've learned so much more from Cypress's teachings of what morality taught him at the Opal Refuge in weeks than I've read in books and through classes for years here. It's possible you can learn from the Druids, and you have one right here in front of you. And please, take care of each other. He repeats the thing that he told you in his office, like that the souls of those in the Black Jade Lords want nothing more than souls who are willing to let go. He's like, so hold fast to that. And good luck.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anything else?
What are the things that I remember specifically from morality?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that as you're traveling. We'll say that you explain a little bit about the shard fusing that you described, a little bit about
Shards.
the cross frequencies. Yep, a little bit of that.
Gem.
It's genuinely very important for Tom to
Different
learn these
gem.
things, but we'll play it out as it relates to Black Jade Lords. Thank you. So that means you are going to travel. The three of you pack your bags and you travel on the road. I want all three of you to roll, not yet, a raw luck check. 1, 2, 3. So Ari first, then Cypress, then Tom. And we're going to let that represent your 3 weeks of travel in general terms. Ari first.
Great.
Off to a good start.
15.
15. So your first leg of the journey, and I think I can actually use the focus point here. Yeah. Your first leg of the journey takes you from the Celestial Conservatory, which is around here, downward on the main path, which is mostly forests, and then eventually you are able to reach almost fully up until the southern tip of the Amethyst Kingdom. And your experience thus far is mostly fine. You're not interrupted by any traumatic events. You have mostly fair weather. Your rations are looking good. The resources that Tom was able to get from Gaius is able to let you pay for a temporary passage on a carriage or to get through some of the tolls that the
Great,
Sapphire
'cause I
Scholars
didn't
have.
bring food.
And finally, you are going to get closer to the Amethyst Kingdom. Cypress, why don't you roll the next D20? See how things go.
Let's just say
Athletes roll
Crya.
poorly.
13.
So, during the second week, not much happens. Things seem to go pretty well. At this point, you pass by on the outskirts of the southern tip of Crya, a city outside the Amethyst Kingdom. Tom, you visibly notice that Ares seems to shrink in the presence of its shadow.
First time in the big city, huh?
Something like that. Yeah. Let's just keep going.
We should go.
Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes that's all it takes. And you move on, and you're going to make your final leg of the journey. Tom, why don't you roll?
A nat 20.
Yay! Well, with that, then something's going to happen while you're on the road.
Woo!
Interesting.
We actually free
man in
Crya.
a cave. He says,
Right.
Just casually.
you find a man in a cave. He says, it's dangerous to go alone.
Take this with you.
Take this with you.
Okay, cool.
Magic.
So, okay, cool. So when you're traveling along the roads on the path to the Emerald Egalitary are mostly plains oriented. These are open farmlands with a couple dotted houses and maybe a few small villages here that aren't documented on your map. And as you were traveling, you notice that there is a group of like a caravan of 3 carriages that are traveling in the opposite direction. They're headed in the direction of the Amethyst Kingdom. And they are stocked with a variety of ingredients, spices, fruits, herbs, and otherwise. It seems like this is a haul being traded to the Amethyst Kingdom, a regular export, if you will. And this is something you can interact with if you want.
I share a knowing look at Ari. You know what I want to do.
Why don't we try talking to them first?
You know where they're taking this, right?
Yeah, so I want to talk to the
Yeah.
tradesman,
Yeah.
anything like that, and see if we can...
I'm missing something.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over a ton of roleplay.
I don't like the
Yeah.
This man, they are part of a caravan. They're not, they're not traveling tradesmen. They're going to go and they're going to do a shipment. But he seems to be in good spirits. He says hello. He asks you a little bit about your journey. You can tell me if you tell him the truth or not. But ultimately, if you want to buy anything off him, he's like, yeah, sure, we can take a break and let the oxen, stretch for a bit. Do you want something?
Yeah, I'd love to see what you have.
Yeah. So I'll narrate that they have some pretty unique fruits and vegetables. These are some and herbs and spices. These are some like lesser known commodities in the Sapphire Scholars. And you can tell me what they are, but they're of relatively rare value.
Okay, great. I don't know what kind of money I have on me.
Do any of the three of you want anything in particular that is there that you can tell me is there?
I've missed the flavor of the Lunar Conservatory's meat soup ever since we've been on the road, so just some fresh meat blend go along with it.
He looks at you and he sort of brushes his beard. He says, We don't ship meat. Do you mean real meat?
Certainly not.
Tom seems
Tom secretly has been vegetarian this whole time.
He says, I don't know, does he? No. He goes, we don't have anything that tastes like meat. We have spices you can use to cure meat, if that's your fancy. I don't have all day to be sitting here. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted.
Just any of the fruit.
Fruit is always good.
I imagine having more rations would be better than
Cool.
not.
What kinds of fruit and veggies? You tell me.
Huh?
You have more money.
Yeah, that's fine. If there are, you said they're rare. Are they like? Do we know if they would help us in any
something
particular
like mangoes
way?
or something like?
Why don't you roll luck for me?
Dragon fruit.
5.
Cool.
Great.
They're cool. They're tasty.
Yeah. So
banana.
This rare specimen, a banana.
yeah. Why don't we do a bit of this oddly shaped fruit? Is that what that is?
It's a banana.
I'm sure it's hearty.
Oh yeah. Well, this is a banana. See, it might look as though it's a little rough to the touch and hard to eat, but this is actually a natural wrapper. Within which he peels one open for you. There's actually a large berry inside.
Fascinating. Yeah, we'll take.
Technically, it wouldn't be a... Sorry.
Do you want to speak? So you had something to say, Tom?
Nothing.
Yeah, we'll.
It's not a
we'll
berry.
Take a bushel. What quantity do you sell?
Yes, 2 bushels of bananas, please.
Perfect.
They get you these bananas, and they're gonna charge you a fair amount.
Sure.
You can roll your mercantile savant ability. Why don't you roll persuasion with your proficiency modifier?
Yeah.
Add it on top of it, and just we'll see what happens.
Market price for egalitarian bananas.
So I already have proficiency in persuasion. Do I
Add it again.
Okay, great. 13.
13 total?
Yeah.
He says, well, I mean, the bananas are just bananas as they are. They come and they go. They're not super pricey. So I can cut you a small deal here. And then he gets you the 2 bushels of bananas, and you pay 20% discount on it. We're not going to make you track gold for this.
Great.
And he looks at the 3 of you and he says, all right,
Is there any like travel hardy fruit, like a coconut or something that we could keep with us?
No.
Good. Well, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate you
pleasure
stopping.
doing business with all 3 of you. I wish you well on your trip to the Egalitary. Enjoy your time in the Rose District while you're there. I've heard that there are plenty of wonderful shows to see. If you're in the area, please try to catch some of the Sir Thorne films as they're airing. They are the most wonderful action flicks.
A film.
Oh, yes. Do you want to have him explain to you the concept of film?
No.
Okay, well, he says, okay, great. Good luck. Enjoy your stay. And then you're gonna part ways. So
Right.
it's time. We now move all the way into the Emerald Egalitary. And hold on.
I ate a banana on the journey.
Roll to banana.
Rolled banana.
Justin, have you told a single truth since we started playing?
From the bush you
Yes. Yeah. To Airy.
Okay.
All right, I'm okay with that. So, a few weeks later, you find yourselves in the Emerald Egalitary. But we're going to leave you aside for just a moment, because at this point, back to my notes. Yay. Okay. So, we take a step up and into the Emerald Egalitary. 4 districts of very large urban size that sort of ripple outwards into their agricultural suburban landscape. The inner city is divided into 4 sections that are named after different flowers and are named the districts, the Rose District or the Tulip District. The Rose District is the one of the most notoriety and importance. It is of the creative arts. Painters, actors, guildsmen of all kinds desperately try to climb the ranks there because the economic model of artisans in the city is very close to the patron family model of, say, Renaissance Italy. You would have extremely wealthy families that have built a lot of wealth from their agricultural trades or from their economic advantages, and then they would pay way too much money for extremely renowned and famous artists to be able to do portraits of them or to produce plays for them. These are small affairs. And you can think of the downtown area of the Rose District as a Hollywood of sorts. Many bussing tables so desperate that one day that their creative works will finally be put upon the big stage. If you were to take a step out of one of the large ornate theater halls and turn left down the street, you would find what effectively amounts to an alley of dirt where you were to go downward into an underground Laughing Lounge style bar with a black box theater. Now, the 3 of you walking through the city realize that the next thing you need to do is you need to acquire enough resources in order to be able to make ferry passage. Even Guy's resources, he told you himself, weren't going to get you that much further, the Emerald Egalitary. So you need something that's going to get you from there to the Black Jade Lords. As you're walking through the alley, something catches your ear. A show is taking place in the Black Box Theater. And for fun, let's go ahead and step into the theater and hear what's going on. One man on stage by himself with multiple props and costumes at his disposal. Trey, why don't you introduce us to your character?
My character is Mordecai Birchwood. He is a struggling, starving artist here in the Rose District. Right now, on stage, he has a robe on, a tattered robe, and he has messy black hair that's shining, like greasy, like almost fake. He has this beard, the proudest thing he has, because it's the only thing that really gives his face any structure, and the thing that he believes is the thing that gets him on stage and would help him pay the bills if he ever had a consistent acting gig. Mordecai, when he is not acting, is trying to scrape every last penny he can for his dingy apartment, only to spend the rest on what he can imagine is the good life for him, going to taverns and bars and trying to just get a good drink when not to drink in excess, but to tell that he is trying to suppress something. Yeah, so that's
Awesome.
what Mordecai is.
So as the 3 of you are walking by, Airy, Cypress, you recognize the voice of this this actor, because you once worked with this man. Mordecai was one of the members of the Emerald Insurgents, this Robin Hood-like entity that was trying to help bring power back to the people. And after years of separation, ever since the events at Cryo, the entire organization disbanded, you realize that you can reconnect with an old friend who's right there on stage, and he is in the middle of wrapping up a one-man play. Let's listen in on that and see what's happening. Tell us what you're playing.
What I'm playing?
Yeah, tell us what you're doing, what your play is happening in your play.
Let's just say that the audience has just seen a traumatic moment reenacted by Mordecai right now, and now we're heading into the end where Mordecai's about to go into his final big monologue about how he's feeling, and he's just gonna give it out to people and hope to see what he hears, giving his all. He is aware that there is a very prestigious actor that we have just discussed named Thorn Earthsong in the crowd, so he is really hoping to impress by giving one of his most dramatic performances right now.
Awesome. Well, let's hear it. Some of the people, including some of your friends, discreetly slip into the back of a very thinly sparse audience in their black box theater. You hear people talking and glasses clinking, and people seem to be paying attention to anything other than your play. But go ahead and give us a little piece of the ending of your play.
No! But that was only internal. For if I made that sound, I would have given myself away. To see my friend, my confidant, my leader, Roxas, their head fall to the floor, looking right into my eyes.
You hear some noises coming from the back of the room as you continue. There's some glasses clinking and...
As I can keep my composure.
What was he talking about?
To see my good friends, those who are fortunate enough, or if you could say unfortunate enough.
Wait, who even is this? Is he the father?
To escape. I only know for certain that those who survived like me.
Hey, hurry it up already!
Are feeling the pain and suffering that I have since that day.
This heckler seems to be picking up some momentum from the crowd. Now I need all 5 of us to heckle you as you finish up your performance.
That Roxas guy sounds like a nobody.
I promise. Myself.
We paid 2 gold pieces for this?
That I would
When's the next show
continue
starting?
on. I would tell their story.
Sir Khan would have done it better.
That I
Heard better.
will not just make a name
Do they still allow us
for
to throw
myself, but for
Yeah, I think they do. I think they will allow us to throw fruit. Nobody's gonna care. Who's gonna stop us?
contingency.
They sell rotten tomatoes at
Those people brought too much
Hey.
bananas.
To live on in memories.
Hey, yeah, those 3 people had bananas. Let's throw those bananas.
And it is with that
Can I have a banana, please?
that I must leave you tonight.
So,
Continue telling that.
Mordecai, bananas are now coming your way. Give me a dexterity save.
Hold on. Okay. Nat 20.
So bananas are being eaten and thrown in your direction. You are on stage and you are so focused in the moment, delivering a monologue you've spent a lot of time memorizing, working hard, rewriting, getting feedback on, and here you are in your one shot. The frequency with which openings in this particular theater are on a quarterly basis at best for nobodies like you. The next chance will be months from now. This is your shot and it's being ruined. A banana comes your way and you just lean to the side and let it pass, and then another one, you sort of step forward and you're using it to like emote further. So you would do this motion where like your character is moving and he's like, and I think, and dodging a banana as it goes over your head, and then it's like, oh, but forlorn, and it goes past to your left side, and then one banana peel lands, slips side down on the floor in front of you, and you accidentally step on it. But you keep perfect balance. You slide along the length of the stage, continuing your monologue. Go ahead and finish it.
But remember this.
Slide.
That I will never slip. I will never trip.
Wow.
For it is the memory of those that I loved that I continue.
He's pretty good.
To do this for.
Seriously? The banana?
And I only hope
Was that part of the
is
show?
that one day
Must have been.
you have something to fight for as strongly as I do. I put on the hood and then I walk off stage.
Oh, just a calm walk out there. So the mood has shifted. People are like, wow, that was, yeah! This is, all right. And just to clarify, that was like 9 people that you impressed. But you step off stage, why not? Let's see if there's anyone.
What's his name?
You see that, there aren't just a couple banana peels on the stage, a couple of just small flowers get thrown out there. Just
I
another
take the flowers.
all right, you take the flowers. Good. You might have to sell those because you barely have enough to pay for your rent at your apartment in the city. So you end up taking a step off stage, and there's someone there to meet you.
Hold on. I did go off stage.
Yeah.
I take off the robe where I'm sure that I'm wearing my actual garb, which is a sewn up white shirt with the sleeves rolled up and a leather vest, some nice pants, some boots, and I take off the hair. It was a wig, and for I am a dirty blonde, a short-haired dirty blonde.
Wow.
Just to show people I could do wig work.
So you take a step off of stage, and as you're sort of changing back into your more traditional attire, you see someone there. You recognize him, but only because you've seen him on posters and on stages and in interviews and in the streets paraded by people. It's the one. It's the only. It's Sir Thorn Earthsong stands there. He is a fur-bolg gentleman with a luscious red mustache and beard. He's got a strong, steady gait, an age of what in human years would be described as 30 years old, and he walks with a cane at his side, not for a limp, but for regality alone. And as he stands there, he leans his scepter next to himself and he starts clapping. He says, "Ha ha! I can't believe it. I really did not think that you were going to incorporate those props so wonderfully during your final monologue. Tell me, how long have you been the Black Box Theater here?"
I've come and go, if I'm being honest.
I appreciate your honesty. Lucky me. I was only passing by on my way back home after another show, which was as successful as they always are. However, there was something so rugged, so raw or real about your performance. There was something that I appreciate. Now, of course, I have plenty of notes for you if you are willing to take them.
Gladly.
So he then proceeds over the next few minutes to just give you some very good, let's find out. Yeah, he proceeds to give you some pretty good advice. He's like, when you're using the stage to denote the separation between two different characters, make sure that the angle of your posture helps people to better conceptualize in a one-man play, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and back when I played a lich in the year whatever, 10 years ago, one of the things that I really did in my voice, you should try to go for something like this. It really helps you to bring
like this.
So something like this.
Something like this.
Roll performance for me.
7 plus 6, 13.
Okay, he's like, you're getting there, but how about this? I might be able to lend you a little bit of the recordings of the work that I've done. If you go to the Rose District Administrative Office for the Council of Arts, they might have a selection of freely rentable recordings of the performances that I've had. And I think that you'll find quite a lot of fun enjoying me at my peak. He shakes his head in order to make his sort of mane, long, luscious locks flail out beside him, and you see that his horns sort of move in sequence. And he laughs at his own joke. I'm joking, of course.
Of course.
I haven't even remotely reached my peak. Now, you though, you'll get there very soon. Don't worry about it. And he pats you way too hard on the back.
Thank you, Sir Song. I do appreciate the advice, I really do.
He says, good, yes, of course you do. I can't wait till the next time you're at the Black Box. Send me a note, I'll have my assistant schedule another ticket for me here.
Absolutely.
Awesome, and he just sort of waltzes right out the back, and you'll hear some of the people in the audience turn to him, and they'll go, is that Sir Thorn Earthsong? Wow, that is hard to say. Is that Thorn Earthsong? I think it is, yeah, wow. Do you think we should go up to him? And he makes his way back down Broadway, so to speak.
Oh, well.
Immediately, you then look back out in the audience, and you see, like a flash from the past, two of your former allies from an era so far removed, you thought they might be ghosts. It's Aerie and Cypress, some of your fellow Emerald Insurgent allies. And, they're holding in their hands the remains of a bunch of bananas.
Helped your performance.
Did you throw a banana, Aerie?
No.
We didn't throw. We sold them though. Look at all this coin.
I found the
You can
performance
have
very
half.
appealing.
half of the money?
Yeah.
Well, how much is that?
How much do we sell a banana for?
Not a lot. A total 7 people bought.
You know
8
what? I'm
bananas.
in no position to really complain about that. But hold on, let's get back on track. You're alive.
Yeah, seems I am. I'm surprised to see that you are too.
Last time I saw you, you turned the other way. I never saw you again. And Cypress,
Yeah.
gods know where you were. You just kind of do your own thing.
I was living it up in the trees, I'm gonna tell you.
Why don't
I heard about what happened though.
I'm just glad that you're safe. I hope you knew like the resonance of what the play that was talking about those moments.
I caught it. Why don't I buy you a drink? We can catch up.
Please. And let it be from the cleanest glass you have ever bought a drink from ever. Please. Cleanest glass.
This is our friend,
Tom.
our acquaintance Tom.
Right. Yeah.
Hi.
He's funding the trip. So
Oh
far.
shoot, what's that word? Okay, yes. That. I'm their benefactor.
Benefactor. This is our benefactor, Tom.
Au pair. That's what I was looking for.
Ah.
How the mighty have fallen.
I really don't know what. Sorry, this is like you're very well dressed. It's very you're kind of just you came in with a complete different energy. I really don't know how to like tackle it, but I'm sure a good acquaintance of my friends.
Passable.
Passable. Yes.
Possible.
At this point, I guess I didn't narrate this, but you 3 spent 3 weeks
Yeah,
together.
that's fair.
Unless there's anything you tell me you definitely want to fully withhold from each other, I will say that you get to know each other well enough to trust each other and like each other.
I'm Mordecai, by the way.
Hi, I'm Ben. Hi, I'm Tom.
Ben
Yeah, Tom seems to have lapsed in memory there for a second. That was really
He does that
strange.
sometimes.
It happened.
Right.
He's older.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get haunted.
Just a whole other being takes over you.
Surely you know the area better than us. Is there somewhere we can go sit, have a drink, privately maybe?
We can go to one of the nicer bars of the Rose District, not one of the crummy ones like Le Rat or the Cockroach. Maybe we can go to something more fancy like the Golden Apple.
Lead the way.
All right.
It's gonna be really pricey. You know this in advance.
Yeah, I know.
This is one shot.
They said they would buy me a drink.
Well, let's see if you have enough. So the 4 of you eventually sit in on the bar. For the sake of hand waving and also to get to the fun stuff, you find yourself in a position where the only reasonable way for you to afford the nice drinks that they're selling is to either persuade the bartender to give it to you, steal it directly while they're not looking, or make some quick money amongst the patrons that are there.
I do have 25 gold on me. I don't know how expensive drinks are.
This is like, these are comically expensive drinks.
Oh, good.
I'm trying to conceptualize. We said that like an entire martial mastery bow course costs 60 gold pieces, I think is what we said, and that was like an 8-week course. A single drink here costs 4 gold pieces. So you can buy a few, but it would be prohibitively expensive.
Well, how about this? I walk up to the bar.
Yeah.
And I say,
Yeah, she's cleaning a glass and is talking to somebody else and doesn't seem to care about you at all.
Gotcha. Hi there.
So I was just thinking that if they would only
Excuse me.
cast him as someone that had a little bit more of stature.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Give me a second. I'll be with you.
I need you to give me a second.
Yeah, go ahead and roll intimidation.
17.
Hold on.
Oh, but plus 3, 20.
Dang. Oh man. It's a tight battle. So she's holding her finger out like this to you, turned towards this other patron that she knows very well, and she goes, "All right, shoot."
Okay. Right. Sir Earthsong has just seen a wonderful performance here in the Rose District, and he is coming this way to have a drink. But he would like to celebrate how wonderful the performance is by giving everyone in the house a drink. He said he would put it on his tab.
And who are you exactly?
Me? How dare you not know who I am? I am Rick Elmheim. I am the apprentice of Sir Earthsong, training to become one of the next big classical actors of our time. So when I come in here and tell you
that Sir Earthsong wants to have a round of beverages for the entire bar. His apprentice coming, and the fact that you have not even heard my name yet. Up and coming actor Rick Elmheim. How dare you? How dare you?
Okay, so 2 things at once. 1, tell me the truth. How much money do you spend on dry cleaning?
0.
Thank you. Number 2, does anyone else do anything while this is happening?
I don't know. They're probably all just here seeing me looking, trying to act my ass off.
Yeah, I'm just kind of standing back watching the show go down. Yeah.
Okay. Are you
Rick Elmheim?
See, look at this man. He knows who Rick Elmheim is.
I don't care. Sorry, could you put on shoes, please, if you're going to enter? I've never heard of you. Do you have tab jurisdiction for Sir Thorn?
My tab jurisdiction is that when Sir Thorn comes here, and if there's not a drink in everyone's hand, he can turn this place's reputation on its head.
This is really good. Unfortunately, I rolled her cadence, and she is a no-nonsense barkeep. So go ahead and roll, I guess you choose Intimidation or Persuasion.
Persuasion is +6. Intimidation is +3. We're going to go with Persuasion.
Go. 18. Oh, what am I saying? It's definitely Deception. What am I saying? It's definitely Deception.
Oh, well then +3, 21.
Okay, cool. So so total is 21,
I'm taking
right?
that roll.
Deception, 21, great. She is going to roll an investigation check. So she looks at you and she says, I know that Sir Thorn has been trying to visit more of the lower districts to get inspired for his next play, but you don't look like anyone from around here. What are you wearing?
Okay, so the audio unfortunately cut out at the exact moment when this barkeep was basically just railing on poor Mordecai. So I'm going to do my best to summarize all of the major highlights and events that took place in the last 20 minutes of this session. So first things first, did they end up getting the free drinks? The short answer is no. Unfortunately, not enough to persuade this no-nonsense barkeep. I do recall that Aerie ended up palming and slipping some of these mints that were described to have given this extra calming effect, the feeling of a short rest. But alongside that, she also coughed up 16 gold for the drinks themselves, and the group was able to get those drinks together. And it turns out that Sir Thorn Earthsong did not make an appearance at this fine Golden Apple establishment. But as they continued moving on, they actually went and took him up on his recommendation to go to the Rose Arts Institute. At the front was a halfling named Rillian Bramblebreeze, and this individual described that there are many different ways for individuals to join the arts guild that they have. It's more of a grassroots project funded by the city to help bolster the arts in the community. And so he was actually willing, with the right paperwork, to lend a device from the institution, a really fine camera of sorts, to him, Mordecai, under the guise that there is a new kind of media that's taking afoot that a lot of people are excited about. It's this idea of these those in the city who live these elaborate, wealthy, sheltered lifestyles. They want to see something more pulpy, something more real and grassroots, or maybe even sad, depressing. And so the idea was for Mordecai to take this camera-like device, take it out into a place of pure desolation or depravity, and to film a documentary of sorts. Mordecai reflects on this, and he realizes this might actually be a dual opportunity for him to both find a way to insert himself into the arts community for the first time, to be taken seriously as an artist, and at the same time, maybe this documentary is the exact thing that the Emerald Insurgents, the group that he and Aerie and Cypress were a part of, to be reunited under a new cause. Going to the Black Jade Lords can solve both of those problems. And at the same time, if Sora can possibly be resurrected by Aerie's desires, then maybe he can use this as the ultimate propaganda rallying cry for those people to finally overthrow their oppressors in different parts of Chrysalis. So with all of that, the group then takes the camera, fulfills some paperwork with plenty of really fun shenanigans, like the use of an illusory script to deceive Rillian into believing that he was someone that he was not. And as they continue to travel, the four of them get closer together. Aerie, Cypress, Mordecai, and Tom. They are willing and able to get those resources and travel down with a couple of extra bananas in tow, all the way down to the northern tip of the Black Jade Lords at a place called the Death's Draft. And that's actually where this session ends. They enter the Death's Draft, or prepare to enter at least, and then they notice that as this looming black visage covers the entirety of the subcontinent of the Black Jade Lords, that this place might be even more perilous than they first imagined. And that is where I get to, in the recording booth here, sign off on the first episode of the Umbral Harbingers. Thank you for staying with us through a little bit of audio re-recording. I'm super grateful for and appreciate those who have been listening to the series. But picking up with episode 2 at Pass Your Own Peril for the Umbral Harbingers, they will meet up at the Death's Draft, meet Helsa herself, and really get to see what's going on inside of these deadly lands. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy. See you next time.